You're watching Fanboy Versus with your hosts, JD Church, Nicole Hale, Chris Triplett, and Chris McFeely.
And you are watching Fanboy Versus. I'm your host, JD. This is my amazing crew, Chris Triplett, Chris McFeely, Nicole Hale. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Oh my God, it is Fanboy Versus the Amazing Spider-Man. Holy crap, people, and Marvel now. But, holy crap, wow, you know. So, we're going to be talking about Amazing Spider-Man. We've got a Spider-Man recommendation, plus we've got the movie review at the end of the show. Wow, Marvel blows your mind this week as they introduce the now 52 and
I wish they'd call it that.
Okay, so it's not quite that, but there's, you know, this is obviously Marvel's response. This is their well played, sir. Here is our hand, you know, kind of deal. So, but we're gonna talk about that in just a second. It's Chris McFeely. We'll talk about it, but yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I guess we could go directly into that. Nicole Hill is having connection problems this week, so she may blip in and out. You probably won't notice it on the audio. You'll probably notice it on the video, but it'll be okay.
Oh, you ruined the mystique for the
I
audio.
know. The listeners are like, the audio listeners are like, what? We had no idea.
Any time that she's not talking, they're going to be going, I wonder if she could drop that.
I wonder if she's here.
She's here or not?
I can't.
Can we talk about her?
Should we? Okay. All right. So, Chris McFeely.
It's the news.
What is Marvel Now?
Marvel, no! Because capital N-O-W.
And
no.
the explanation point, is it not? It does have...
That does have that.
It does
there
have
too.
that
Yeah,
as well.
You have to shout it. That is what's happening after Avengers versus X-Men. Now, let us get this straight from point one. This is not actually anything new for Marvel. Relaunching a bunch of titles at number one after a big event is the Marvel modus operandi. That's what Marvel does.
Is it Tuesday? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But so the fact that they're actually doing this is not shocking or surprising or revelatory in any way, and yet because they've given it a name, basically, you know, it's not like the Heroic Age or Dark Reign. It's not a name that refers to something in universe, but it's a marketing term name. And coming on the heels a year after DC's reboot, which they're obviously, and you know, obviously trying to cash in on the success of. People are thinking, oh my God, why is Marvel rebooting the universe? They're not. Shut up. No, Marvel don't play like that.
No.
Marvel don't reboot.
Do they even really need to, though?
Yeah.
I mean, why would they even need to?
They are the masters of the soft reboot. That has been... like their entire legacy is being able to continue to make their characters relevant by massaging things and slowly updating things, you know, and then throwing out the number one. So they're
by the way, Iron Man's origin takes place in Afghanistan now. Moving on.
Exactly. I mean,
oh my God!
You know,
holy God, my worldview is completely altered. Wait, no, it's grand. Moving on.
Right. I mean, you know.
And this is going to be through October through to, I believe, February of 2013. There are going to be various new jumping on points launching. So it's not all at once. It's not all in 1 month. It's over a period of time. I believe they've said so far at least there will be 22 new number ones across that. Across 5 months. So that's like 4 a month. I think there's more than 4 number ones out this month. Okay, so that's not. You know, this is not something to shit the bed over, all right?
Now, are these all new books, or are they actually taking some books and renumbering them back to number one?
Because
I know there's
entirely no. We know at this point 4 things that are happening, and those 4 things are as follows. Number 1, Uncanny Avengers by Rick Remender with art by John Cassaday. Ho ho.
Ooh.
Now we'd heard some rumbles about this one. This is going to be, I mean, the basic premise of this is that it's a team comprised of Captain America, Wolverine, and some characters from the groups. In fact, we've seen the cover for this one, and we know that Scarlet, hang on, let me just pull the cover up. I should have it in front of me, but I don't.
I think Rogue's on this team, isn't she?
Yes.
I think I heard that.
Here it is. Thor, Havoc, Scarlet Witch, Rogue, Captain America, and Wolverine. They are the
Wolverine's going to be in every book.
Yeah, what a shock. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. Given that we are now living in a point in time where Beast, Wolverine, and Storm are all members of the Avengers, I'm not sure what makes Uncanny Avengers special. But whatever.
Marvel wants us to think it's special. I think I even heard them.
Yeah.
It'll be like their flagship title or something, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, I think Timey made the point on Twitter this morning about how, you know, like back in the '90s, it was like everybody was an X-Men, you know, and now it's like everybody is an Avenger.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's been that case for years now. I mean, Avengers, like X-Men floundered off in their own little corner of the universe. It's funny how the movie didn't actually manage to. If anything, the movie segregated the X-Men from the rest of the Marvel universe. You know, it used to be back in the '90s, they were everywhere. They were the thing, you know. Then, for whatever reason, the movie wound up segregating them more than it did pushing them to the fore. And the Avengers just sort of snuck in there when Bendis took over. And then basically, you know, that's why we have an Avengers film now. Is because
how simultaneous was Avengers Disassembled and the X-Men movie? I wasn't paying attention at that time.
Oh, so. No. 4 or 5 years apart.
Really? But I mean, would you say that one led into the other, or you know that those?
Oh no, I mean, I think that it was just a concept. I mean, I think the Avengers getting propelled to the status it was simply a consequence of putting Bendis on it. You know, when they relaunched New Avengers, they didn't launch a million satellite books or anything like that. Avengers just legitimately grew its popularity under Bendis until it you know, this was not a forced thing. Avengers actually, under its own steam and power, grew to the position where it is now. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Anyway, Uncanny Avengers, and the first story arc is going to be about them versus the Red Skull. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. That's one.
And why not? The other one is finally we have confirmation. Yes, Bendis on X-Men. All new X-Men by Bendis with art by Stuart Immonen, which is definitely the one with the premise that everybody is looking at. It is the original 5 X-Men, Iceman, Cyclops, Beast, Angel, and Jean Grey, are brought forward in time to the present day.
What?
Yes, that is the hook of this series. This is not just like the first arc or something. That appears to be the intended premise of this series, is that these characters are going to be pulled forward to the present day.
And I think they also added that they don't like the way things are also.
So, wait a minute, though. So, Beast, Cyclops, Jean... Iceman.
Yeah.
So...
1960s X-Men,
are we going to have
think of them like that.
Well, I mean, this begs the question: does that mean we're gonna have like 2 Cyclops and 2 Beasts, or is are the current ones gonna die? I mean, what?
No, I would say we'll probably have 2 of them because that would be the point, really. Jean comes along and sees she's dead. Angel comes along and sees he's become a brainwashed, mind-wiped religious lunatic. Beast is going to come along and see he's become a giant blue furry hairy mutant. Cyclops is going to come along and see he's become a massive dick. And Iceman's going to come along and be like, man, I haven't changed in 40 years. I wish someone would do something to me.
I'm the same tool I ever was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't. Well, or maybe. Well, I mean, well. I guess that's going to be the question too. Is like for me, is Scott going to make it out of this alive?
Yeah.
I'm interested in this. Honestly, I was ready to write off Bendis, but I think I might get this.
It's an intriguing enough premise. I mean, the word is they're being very cagey thus far on what exactly is happening to the existing lineup. They've claimed nothing is going away, but they have at the same time said this is taking Uncanny X-Men's place. So, don't know what's going on there. Similarly, the 2 other things we know of kind of go hand in hand, and they are reasons to punch the sky, because it's been confirmed. Oh yes, that's right. Jonathan Hickman on the Avengers bi-weekly. That's right. Oh yeah.
Damn it!
Yeah.
More money gone.
Okay. I dropped Avengers. I now will have to pick it back up again.
Not only do I have to pick up Avengers, I have to pick it up every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Crap.
And that's by Jonathan Hickman with art by Jerome Pena, and it's going to be focusing on not many details, but we just know it's going to have a roster of 18 heroes that are going to be splitting up like multi-part stories with one-shots and things. Basically, just think his Fantastic Four. Think the way he did Fantastic Four, interspersing multi-part things with shorter stories focusing on different characters.
And no one eating breakfast.
Yeah, well, that's New Avengers, which Jonathan Hickman is also writing. Jonathan Hickman's New Avengers is a thing as well, with art by Steve Epting.
Wait, is he doing 2 books?
Yeah.
Yes, this
And
is
also
this
no
is,
one eating
see,
breakfast.
I don't know what to think about that, though. I mean, if I'm honest, what I was really hoping was going to happen was that Avengers and New Avengers, in the same way that when Spidey went thrice monthly, they cancelled his 3 books. You know, they cancelled Friendly Neighborhood and they cancelled whatever. I don't remember what they were at this stage. They cancelled them all and just had one 3 times a month. So I was hoping, I have to admit, that Avengers and New Avengers would go and be replaced by this bi-weekly Avengers. But the word is that New Avengers is staying around as well and is also being written by Hickman.
So what does this mean for FF then? I mean, is that going to go away then at the end of
No,
Hickman's
supposedly it is not going away.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So I mean I agree with you. I think it should, and it's not that I don't want more Fantastic Four or anything, but it's like its purpose is to be like the support title for the Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four has historically proven itself very incapable of supporting spin-off titles.
It can hardly support itself. The only reason it supported itself for the last few years is because of Jonathan Hickman.
That's literally it. Yeah, I mean that's what I was going to say. Like even when the book's been at its strongest, the Fantastic Four just can't support spin-off things, and FF has managed to survive because it is just a reflection and well, certainly maybe not the last couple of issues, but it's been very much the in-between issues of.
Okay, this is how you keep FF going. You get a team together. Ghost Rider, catch Ghost Rider, Grey Hulk, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and you rename it New FF.
No. No. No, Dan Ketch. Bad.
Yes, Dan Ketch.
Thank you. No.
Good.
No.
No. Yes.
No. Anyway.
Yes.
So, okay, so they're going to keep FF. Okay, great.
Well, we just have to wait and see what happens, really. I mean, the rumor is Matt Fraction and Sal LaRocca on Fantastic Four. And given that all the other rumors we've been hearing out of this so far are proving accurate, you know. So yeah, I mean, what I was hoping was that those two would be cancelled and Avengers would replace them, and that Uncanny Avengers would replace Secret Avengers, since Secret Avengers is currently being written by Rick Remender and he's going to be writing Uncanny Avengers. Seemed like a logical step. I mean, it's remarkable to think that we would have Avengers, New Avengers, Secret Avengers, Uncanny Avengers, and Avengers Assemble, and one of those coming out twice a month.
So is Assemble staying? Who's getting Assemble then? Bendis is gone.
Again, rumors. It's all rumors from the same. It's all from Bleeding Cool. Most of these rumors came from. The rumor is Wade.
God.
Like, well, if you go back like a couple of months and you listen to this show, and we'll be saying like, who would be great to get on the Avengers after Bendis goes, I think you'll find the 2 names that were forward by all parties involved.
Yeah.
Goodbye, some of my DC comic list. Hello, some of my Marvel pull list.
See, Fanboy Versus, we're on the cutting edge. See, we know what's up. We know what's good.
We know where
at least.
Or what's really
Some
scary,
people-
someone's listening to us.
Yeah,
Or
maybe.
that.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, for God's sake, there's a Gambit ongoing series coming out in a week or two.
Yeah.
Do not trash Gambit. Do not trash him.
And I do want to mention real quick while we're on it. Bendis did tweet earlier in this week that Ultron War is still on.
Yeah, but when and where?
I don't know, but that's what he said. He's like, it's coming soon and it's awesome. And I'm like, okay, Bendis, you know.
It's a mini-series. You know it's got to be a mini-series, right?
It's going to have to be
Yeah, at
now.
this stage, it's gotta be, yeah. I mean, as I think I said last time, the word is it's done, and it's just waiting to be published.
Right.
And it seems like, based on the teasers we've seen of it, it's just some alternate future thing anyway, so it seems like they could do it at any time. Yeah. And then, you know, if it begins in the present day or there's a bit of time travel involved, you just give this issue occurs before the events of Avengers versus X-Men or some shit like that. And just go from there. But it is vaguely irritating to just be like, why is that not the summer event? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would seem to...
Not that I'm saying I want Bendis in charge of another summer event, but it's like...
Well, it seemed to me...
is all laid for this
I'll
one.
tell you why, because the Marvel think tank thing was, 6 months ago or so when they started planning all this, and they wanted to have the crossover to get Bendis onto X-Men. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, I think that's what this is all about. Right. I think this is the bridge to get Bendis onto X-Men. Because X-Men's been struggling, you know, they're trying to pick up readership on that side. So what are they going to do? They're going to throw Bendis onto X-Men. I mean, that makes sense, but...
See, that worked for the Avengers. I'm not sure if it'll work for the X-Men. But, well, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. But I just don't know if Bendis is that much of a draw anymore. You know, it didn't sell Moon Knight. I think the world is Bendised out.
Yeah, I think he may be a little bit past his prime in that sense. You know, I think... Well, because, like I said, I mean, you know, we make little cliche jokes. Like, you know, it's about them sitting around eating breakfast. But... I mean, you know, grab a random issue of New Avengers off the shelf and find one where they're not eating breakfast or lunch or supper. You know, I'm just saying, it's not like we pulled this stuff out of thin air. So,
yeah.
Anyway, any more? Well, is there more?
No, those are the four things that we know about right now.
So,
and I mean, they didn't even really announce New Avengers. That was just mentioned in passing in an interview with Axel Alonso and Tom Brevoort. The three things we've had proper announcements for are Uncanny Avengers, All New X-Men, and Avengers. Cool. But there's been a promo image which we've seen, which has the Hulk in some kind of exoskeleton, Iron Man in a black suit, and Cyclops in a red outfit with an X-shaped visor. Nova's on there, and Rocket Raccoon's on there.
Yep, Rocket Raccoon.
Cable's got an eye patch. Cable's got an eye patch. Black Nick Fury and Captain America wearing a uniform, a little bit more movie-esque.
And who is the female? There's another female in that.
Rogue is in there. Is that who you're talking about?
Rogue, yeah.
No. I'm looking at what? I don't see Rogue.
I thought there was another female in there.
Sue Storm's there.
Yeah, I thought there was another female.
Well, Jean Grey is there.
Jean Grey, that's who it was. That's who it was. Yeah. Oh. That's who it was. So yeah.
Whatever happened to those guys who were made of fire and ice from Marvel Point 1A? The character finds of 2011. Remember them? No, you don't.
I remember them. I just don't remember their names.
No, neither do I. Firebrand and Cold Blood, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I'm fairly sure that's not right in the slightest, but I know I'm in the ballpark.
Point 1 was so terrible that even Marvel forgot about them.
Oh, man.
Wow.
It was bad.
Yeah. Huh.
Remember Epic Fail? Epic Fail. Remember? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
But now at least we know now that wasn't Richard Rider. That was Jeff Loeb's stupid fake Nova who's in a bad cartoon now.
Yes.
Yep. He is.
Yeah.
So
it's got that going for it.
But that's the funny thing to me though about this like Marvel Now thing, like I said, is that it's really just a marketing thing. It's not really anything, you know. It's sort of the response to New 52, but it's not. You know, people are really free. I've seen several people on Twitter, you know, freaking out and stuff, and it's
like,
why? Why are you? What? Yeah. This is nothing. This is like, it's a Tuesday, folks. It's the summer.
As long as they don't touch Amazing Spider-Man or Daredevil, they can do whatever the hell they want with the rest of the Marvel universe. I don't give a shit at this point.
I would be shocked if they tried to screw with Amazing Spider-Man right now.
You just don't screw with Amazing Spider-Man. You don't screw with Daredevil. I'm happy. Those are my two books.
Some things are due a bit of a kick up the arse. You know, it's just some things are due. The Avengers in particular is legitimately due a refresh, even though it's only been. Has it been 2 full years? No, it hasn't been 2 full years since since the Heroic Age started, has it? Yeah. No, the numbering would indicate that it is, but I don't. Okay, it's been about 2 years anyway. Honestly, like Bendis has really just been riding out the last while. Like a lot of the stuff that's happening in Avengers and New Avengers, particularly in crossover mode now, is very, very phoned in, and it is in need of something fresh. But I swear to Christ, if they touch my Avengers Academy, somebody will pay.
Yes, don't touch that one too.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Hopefully not.
Forgot about that one.
Like Journey into Mystery, Punisher, Daredevil, Avengers Academy, Amazing Spider-Man. These are the books. You leave these books alone.
They're doing good.
Don't mess with them. They don't need the refresh. The X-Men are have been. All signs point towards Avengers versus X-Men tying off the last few years of X-Men storytelling. Really, Siege did that for the Avengers. Short of the Scarlet Witch, the franchises will be in a tied up place where a fresh start and kick up the arse. A refresh will be a good thing and a needed thing. But you don't mess with the, you know. And I can see why some people are panicking. You know, whenever you look at it from the way I'm acting right now, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm panicking.
Well, I know for a fact they won't touch my favorite Marvel one because it has nothing to do with superheroes. Dark Tower is safe. I know that.
Yeah, That's
New Dark Tower. No, Dark Tower.
Dark Tower.
Dark Tower.
Where Roland becomes a robot.
God.
Yes.
Young gunslingers.
Okay, they do have robots in Dark Towers, but they just hasn't come up to it yet. So.
Wow.
I know. I look forward to a time in which everybody does not hate the Scarlet Witch. The Vision doesn't want her to leave the mansion. I mean, come on, just get me back to the Avengers the way they used to be. I'm tired of this disassembled crap. Let me forget it, please.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense, I think for the sake of the X books, you need to. I mean, and that's probably what some of this is going to undo. We need to undo the no more mutants, and we need to like unsuck the Avengers. So there's just like it's just like these two things that need to happen. Hopefully, hopefully the little cleansing fire of the Phoenix will, fix it all. Maybe, or time travel apparently.
I mean, there is the sense of all the eggs in one basket. With such focus on the Avengers and X-Men franchises. We've seen how that turns out before for the X-Men in the 90s.
Onslaught.
Yeah. That was basically the culmination of that.
Yeah, I mean, that was essentially that whole crossover. That was the last time they really did something like this.
That was also Mark Waid, by the way.
Yeah.
Mark Waid.
Him and other people too.
Yeah. Well, he was writing X-Men for a very short time at the time. Yep.
Well, I mean, we're in a tricky time. I don't know if it's probably just not feasible to throw everything at the wall the way they were doing in the early part of the 2010s to see what stuck. The era that gave us, well, Runaways is really the only new property they came up with at the time. But She-Hulk came out of that. The Mystique series came out of that. Sentinel came out of that. Various strange Spellbinders, Machine Team, things that are long forgotten now. But the market doesn't seem like it can sustain that anymore. And of course, that begs the question: is whether is it that Marvel won't put these out, or is it that the market won't support them if they do? Look at their last Young Allies. Look at how long that lasted. But was that because of the quality of the book, or was it because it was a market that wouldn't support it? These are the questions, and obviously Marvel have settled on the answer that it's the market.
Right.
And we'll just have to see what happens.
Yep. I'm interested. I'm definitely interested in a lot of this stuff. The thing is that for as much of the reshuffling that's going on, I'm gonna probably net more books out of it, than I'm reading right now.
Put Jonathan Hickman on something, and we'll see.
Yeah.
You'll get my attention.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably pick up, both of. I'll at least pick up his Avengers book. I don't know about New Avengers, but I'll at least pick that up, and so there's a lot of stuff out of this I think I would get. So
cool. You'll get it when they start crossing it. You'll have to.
I know. Yeah. Well, and here's the deal, folks. I'm looking at my calendar, and next week is Comic-Con. Yes.
Yes.
So remember your early tease for this. So the 14th is our big Comic-Con show. So some of us will be here. Those of us who can be here. Hopefully, Chris McFeely, I think.
I hope so. Yeah.
So would be here. We'll have others of the TF Radio Network there as well. We'll be here most of the day, broadcasting live right here on TF Radio Network /live, talking about all the stuff that'll be coming out of Comic-Con, and hopefully we'll get
all
more.
The films, television,
toys. Televisions.
I think
toys.
they also do these pulp paper things.
There's something, there's some kind of paper something or other that comes out. I know there's digital stuff, but
that's the future.
Yeah, but paper things as well. So comics, hopefully, we'll get some more news out of that as well. So you can join us right here, TF Radio Network /live next week, 14th. Yes, Saturday. All right, let's get into it then. Let's get into recommendations because we want to move quickly towards the Amazing Spider-Man movie.
I promise nothing.
Yes. So then, Chris Triplet. Speaking of Spider-Man,
yes.
Do you get a half a drink for Ultimate? I think it's a half drink for Ultimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
You get a half drink. Okay,
yeah.
You get a half sip.
I think that's fair. Because it is Spidey. I mean, it's a version of Spidey.
And that sounds like a creative rights lawsuit waiting to happen.
So
technically, it is Spider-Man.
It is Spider-Man. I mean, he
Is this like
he
the
is.
Coke Zero trying to?
Yeah, so Stan
like
Lee
the
and
Coke
Steve
people
Ditko
trying-
clearly deserve money from Miles Morales. Wait, do
the,
they? But no, hold on, because
Hey,
what?
hey,
These are the Coke people trying to sue Coke Zero for taste infringement. Is that the?
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah.
The only reason I say he's sort of Spider-Man is just because he doesn't have webbing yet. When he gets webbing, he's fully Spider-Man.
Yeah, he
Just
does.
saying.
He does not have webbing.
No, he doesn't.
So,
But I'm
all right.
recommending Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 12, which I think this is the issue people should be reading because they've been building to this. It's the big decision.
Yeah, this is so good. This was good.
What is Miles gonna do about his uncle?
Oh.
He's backed him into a corner, and literally the shit hits the fan in this issue, and it's cool. It's a good issue. I mean, literally, even if you haven't been reading it, I think it's probably stands alone on its own because you get the idea what's going on with him.
Yeah.
You got the idea that his uncle is really, landing on thick and wants him to do, not good things, and he's backed into a corner, and it's basically a big fight, but it's worth it. It's cool. I don't know where they're going from here on, but I'm really interested in seeing where they're going. Like number 13 is on my radar. That might be the first issue that I read when the comics come out next time. But yeah,
Miles sprouts some serious cojones in this one.
oh yeah.
Nice.
I mean, Miles has to do a little bit of growing up in it, and he's really, he's standing up, he's making his decision, and boom, things
I
are
feel
not
sorry
good.
for this kid, man.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, and it's I mean, like I didn't read this issue, but I mean, talking about that, I mean, that is something interesting though too, because Peter had to do a lot of, growing up very. I don't know much about Ultimate, but I know that you think about Peter in like the regular Marvel universe. There's a kid that had to do a lot of growing up very quickly, and got faced with some things, some hard stuff. So, it's good to see that this character is really being tested with, not just sort of conundrum sort of things like, oh, are they going to find out that I'm, actually Spider-Man at this school, or what will my folks think? But, really a sort of life-changing thing. We have it seems to be a different uncle dynamic,
Yeah, I was getting to that. I really like how they're doing that because like we've always been Spider-Man's uncle is his inspiration.
Right.
His uncle is the person that he probably loves the most in his life, his entire life. And then you get this dynamic, and you've got this uncle that was really nice to him when he was younger, but now he's like his greatest enemy. It's so weird, and it's great. And it's another way to just say, this is his own character. This isn't just Ultimate Peter Parker, like it was before. Miles is his own character, and it's so awesome. That's why it was the book I wanted to recommend this week because it continues to be great, and I think people should be picking it up.
Sweet.
It's
and
awesome.
without spoilers, just based on the way this issue ends, they might be going for like, it depends on how the next issue turns out, but they could be going in like a very dark reflection of Spider-Man's relationship with his uncle.
Yeah.
In that things might turn out the same, but for whole different reasons,
Yeah. It's just like how we were talking earlier about how, Peter had his responsibility, and now the responsibility is a little bit different with Miles as he's viewing. He's got these powers. Peter Parker died. Peter Parker sort of became his Uncle Ben.
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of like how everything's kind of mixed up. Well, now it's mixed up even more because his uncle is how he's involved with it, and it's so good.
Like,
I mean, it really
Peter's
is.
Peter's thing is that the failure to use his powers results in his uncle's death, and then with this issue, is it the use of his powers that's maybe going to result in his uncle's death?
Maybe.
Is it a total flip like that? Is that where we're going with this? Because I can get on board with that if that's what it is. Because this guy needed a good punching, and he got it. Like, cause this was the thing where like you were really cheering for Miles in this one as well, and then so were the bystanders. He's pure Spider-Man material. Stops in the middle of the fight, gets the bystanders to safety. They all cheer on for him. It's like he's moved beyond that costume is in bad taste. He's got the bystanders on his side when he does good. And then when everyone's cheering for him and he's out there doing what he needs to do responsibly, is that going to be the thing that destroys him? There's some good material here. And to be frank, I'm a little worried since this is supposed to be going into this whole Ultimate Divided We Fall thing as of next issue. And I'm like, I don't give one toss about whatever's going on.
I don't care about any of those other books. I won't be buying any other Ultimate books. Ultimate Spider-Man is the only thing I care about that lousy universe, I'll say right now.
Like right now, like over in the Ultimate X-Men, Nimrod Sentinels are besieging chunks of North America on a pre-programmed course to eliminate all mutants. And over in the Ultimates, everybody in Washington, D.C. has been killed, and the Secretary of Energy, so far down the chain, has become the president because so many people are dead.
What?
Oh my God.
And, these are books where the world is in a sorry-ass state, and the whole divided we fall, world is in chaos, country in chaos, really. World as well, big things.
So if they do
if
they screw up the Ultimate Universe, please don't touch Ultimate Spider-Man. That's all I'm asking.
Well,
Leave
he's part of the crossover, so it's like, Miles is not exactly in a civilization threatening scenario. He punched his uncle. Is not exactly on a par with mass genocide.
Yeah.
And just as a quick recommendation, hey, I love Amazing Spider-Man. 689 came out. I still
Wait. Triplet loved Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay, there you go. Now you can take a full drink. Take your full drink.
Drink for Ultimate Spider-Man. I'll take the full drink for Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
Because it's still great. This stuff with Kurt Connors, I don't think we've ever gotten a story like this, and it's really awesome. I really like the twist. I mean, it ain't. You kind of saw it coming, but still, he's pretty good.
I love all the in his head stuff. That just creeps me out, man.
All I know is I was reading this at work, and I just went, ew, at the end.
At the end, yeah. I figured that's what it was. I kept looking. I was like, is that it? No, that can't be it. Is that it? And then I got to the end. I was like, oh, that was it.
Yeah, that's great. And again, Morbius is in it, and I think we were talking before the show. God, please put Morbius in Amazing Spider-Man 2, the movie, because he would be perfect. He would fit.
I love Morbius.
Morbius is awesome. It's a good book. I mean, I don't know what else to say except for, hey, keep buying it. Dan Slott is awesome, and it's my favorite comic being published.
The simple fact that they were able to find somewhere to go after Shed in a direction that is still not that one lizard story that there is.
Mm-hmm.
Is impressive in and of itself. Because, we're going to talk about Amazing Spider-Man, the film, in a little while, but that's still that one lizard story.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Excellent. All right, Nicole?
Talking about animals that make you go, ew. I'm talking about
things that make you go,
ooh. What the? This week I'm talking about Animal Man. I haven't talked about Animal Man for a while, but it's still one of my favorites. Series.
Animal Man!
Animal Man! Come on, that's one of the best DC shorts. Go. If you guys haven't watched the DC shorts, oh god. when he failed to save the crab's sandcastle, oh my gosh, that was so funny. Anyway, so funny. But this one is it's kind of like the ending of a story and starting to go on to another one. It's very family oriented. Cliff is in the middle of it. His son, Cliff is kind of a pain in the ass. Let's just say it. But, he's still a family guy. He still loves his kids no matter what they do. And it's based on Cliff. But you also get Animal Man versus Animal Man because someone's impersonating him. And so what happens, he gets supercharged and he becomes a bigger and better Animal Man. And the best thing about Animal Man is the artwork because it is so creepy cool. If you want to see,
is it still the same guy who's doing the Animal Man artwork? Because I remember recently it changed, but
yeah. Well, it's been a couple issues. Right now it's Jeff Lemire writing and Albert Ponticelli and Wayne Foucher and Laverne Kidorzinski. Those three are doing the work, the penciling and the coloring. So, yeah.
That's
so
different.
It still has the same kind of feel, the same kind of tone. Very heavily detailed, kind of gory. They're like I said, if you're not into the whole graphic, this probably is not for you because heads do come off in this issue. It's kind of cool for me because
Now she has no problem with people's heads flying off and things.
But if that was a dog's head.
If it was a rat or a dog.
Okay. Don't read We Three. You're just gonna cry for hours. I'll just tell you that right now.
Oh my god! Don't even put the notion in her head.
It's fantastic, but you will cry for hours. My god, I want to cry every time I read it.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Well, the thing is, his daughter also has a little protector that's a cat. Something may not be the best thing that happens with the cat in this one. Like I said, it's a really good story because he's such a good family guy that he just wants everything to go back to normal so he could just have this family life, and that's what he's working towards. He's even made the promise to his wife, this is it. This is it. I'm not going to do this anymore. So we'll see what happens because there's a big twist at the end, and I'm like, You guys
when every superhero makes that promise, it turns out great for everybody.
Oh yeah, it always goes really well.
But the thing is, his kids are the part of the whole story. Both of them. I mean, his daughter's got similar powers to him, and his boy's been taken off, and yeah, it's such a good story. Like I said, it's probably my favorite of the DC 52, and I look forward to it every month that it comes out. And of course, now they're going to be crossing over with Swamp Things, so I got to start picking up Swamp Things.
Woo! I might need to pick that up then, because Swamp Thing's awesome.
Yeah, because it even says at the very end, it says what's up next. It says Swamp Thing. So,
oh man,
yeah,
it's coming.
So yes, this is probably my favorite DC comics. So, like I said, a lot of good stuff. Heads come off. How can you not like that?
I don't know. You're the one that was when it was an Amazing Spider-Man. You were like,
that was different.
Why?
It was an innocent creature. This guy was an innocent.
Oh, okay. I see.
Right, yeah.
So now you get to make distinctions between what life has value and what life doesn't.
No, I'm just saying this guy had it coming for him.
Okay. I got you. All right. Okay.
Understood.
Right,
so basically, don't get on Nicole's bad side. If you do something or she thinks you deserve it, head off.
Head off.
Not head on. Head on. I need to say it. Head on.
Head on.
Head on.
Head on.
Head on.
Wow. We went there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. I have two things, one quick and one I'll talk a little bit more about, which is number one issue, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So we talked about this.
I'm happy that you got this, by the way.
A couple of weeks ago we talked about.
I'm impressed with you.
I know. I saw it there and I was just like, how can I not? And grabbed it off the shelf. So.
I give this only the most cursory of glances now.
I had the digital version. Comic Shop didn't even have it.
This is kind of.
Are you surprised?
I was not expecting this kind of story, but it's an interesting start for the story. It doesn't, it's like you think He-Man, and you just think you're just gonna get in there and start busting heads, and it doesn't do that. It doesn't exactly go in that direction. There's a little bit of a oddity, anomaly, a mystery in this, and I like it. It's nice. I mean, there's plenty of action still. There's plenty of what you would expect out of that. But, there's a little bit of a mystery here, so a little bit of several questions to be answered. So I like it. I think it's a good first issue. Now, this will be the only paper one, right? Everything else is going to be digital? Is that what we said, or is this actually...
I bought mine digital.
I thought they were all going to be released.
I don't know. That's what I said. I'm kind of confused because I was not everything.
That Jeff Johns story is just digital, I think. And the first issue of it came out digital for 99 cents.
And I just turned to the back page, and there's something called PowerCon. Wow. Okay. Anyway,
they've had.
I didn't even know that
for a while now.
But anyway, so I don't know if this is going to continue to be print or not. I don't even know if I'm going to continue to read it. But I'm just impressed with the first issue. I'm just like, that's a good way to start that off. This is probably not going to be for me. But it's far better start than I would have anticipated out of it. So if you have any interest in He-Man and you were wondering about checking it out, I would recommend it. I would definitely give it a try.
Hey, He-Man fans, try out this comic because you have no other fiction to read.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah.
No, I did like the splash page of Beastman.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's good stuff in here. Beastman does make an appearance, prominent part in this. So yeah, it's worth checking out. But my big thing is going to be Ozymandias #1. Ozymandias, yes. So this is, again, another part of the Before Watchmen. Now, we talked about kind of last week. We've been talking about these as they've come out. And, we had kind of said that Darwin Cook had it right. You know, it seems that so whatever it is, that reverence, you know, about not wanting to do it, now he is. Now he seems to be doing it right. The two books that he is writing, and one drawing, obviously, you know, they feel very much in the Watchmen universe. They feel like there's, you know, visually as well as tonally. I thought this was a nice visual departure, and yet probably a better story overall, at least beginning to a story, than, say, Comedian or Night Owl. You know, the Night Owl story, it was like that, you know, we kind of even said it about Comedian as well. It was like both those stories ended, and it was kind of like, okay, cool, we're done. Peace out. Whereas this story is much more of sort of a biographical retelling of Ozymandias, which to me, it's like, I don't know, it's like I knew it before, and it's like I'm re-remembering. It's like, oh yeah, he's like the Uberman, you know. That's the whole deal. Pinnacle of mind and body.
He's the world's smartest man.
But not just that. I mean, he's also at like a physical peak as well. And with like the whole blonde hair and everything, it's like, oh, I kind of get it. Not like I said, I got it before. It's just like kind of forgot. But, you know, one interesting thing about this story is that it's not done in square panels. It's actually done in partially rounded, which if you think about circles, you know, you think about like perfect circles, and you think about like that reflecting the sort of the idea of perfection that this character is trying to achieve. You know, I mean, that's essentially what Adrian's whole thing is that he's trying to become perfect. And you know, so the circles are throughout. There's all of these different things. But I think it's an interesting telling of the sort of the first part of his story. It's everything like up to the first time he puts on the costume. And you know there's more, because you're going to see the progression of this character on through his crime fighting days, his retirement from crime fighting, and then his work on, you know, up to like Crime Busters, and then forward.
I just want to know, did you flinch when you saw him kick that kid's knee out? Because that
oh
was
my
awesome.
god!
Oh yeah.
Oh man, when he
Yow.
did that,
Whoa! I was like, oh crap!
I mean, it just like it broke like a twig, and it's just like, oh. But you know, I do like that they portrayed Adrian as, you know, there'd always been kind of a question about, was he, you know, homosexual, but in here they portray him much more as bisexual, which I think again it gives that character, again, talking about like the circles and what is being reached for here, whereas this is the idea of like a perfect being. He has no, you know, preference in that way, and that bisexuality, it's sort of like an acceptance of all sexuality, along with acceptance of all knowledge, of all physicality, of all physical work. So, and I may be digging a little bit, but
it's kind of interesting what inspires him to be a hero too, because what, you know, that character, what happens to that character in the comic, I always felt like, you know, she's just there in his life, but then like what happens to her, I was like, why does he care so much? And is he just looking for an excuse? And maybe this is his excuse. You know, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because like he's like, everything's just like, okay, everything's just happening around me. He's very Reed Richards, and like, you know, I'm working, you know, and then people are around me. But then when something's gone, then it matters enough to, oh, that's my excuse to do this. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's great points in here, and that's why I said the ending of this, it while it comes to a climax, it has an individual book sort of climax conclusion, I still want more. I know that there's more, and I know that I'll want more of it, so it'll be interesting to see that second act and then into the, you know, the third act as this book goes on. But I thought it was really well done, really interesting. In particular,
that Jay Lee art's very nice, I'll say. I still like his art.
I think that's the thing that probably moved me more. I mean, it's not like there was a lot of story depth, like things that we couldn't infer or know, but I think the art does a really great job of sort of emotionally moving you through the story. The use of, like I said, the circles, the images, the emotion on the faces, really just, and color as well. I mean, like the whole this full page with Moloch is just, you know, it's gripping in that way. But this is really good. Like, for stuff that's not Darwin Cook, this is probably the best stuff. I'm not going to say that
I was not expecting it to be as good as I thought, honestly. This was like the book I was like, okay, this is the one that I think I'm not going to care that much about, but it's
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah,
There's a real willingness in this one above all the others actually to explore new territory and just tell a new story and not be overly worried about following the conventions of Watchmen or following what's established, because we don't learn an awful lot about Adrian in the course of Watchmen.
no.
Just enough to turn suspicion away from him, essentially, so you don't see it when it happens. I was quite surprised. It's written by Len Wein, this one as well. And he was the original editor of Watchmen. So there's a slightly 70s, 80s tone to the writing. It's quite a dense comic. There's a lot of write-ins going on in there. It's not like a modern comic. It was unexpected.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed it.
I didn't expect much out of it, but I should have, but just because of how important that character is in Watchmen.
Yeah.
It's like what role he actually plays in the story. I should have expected more, but I didn't. This isn't the one I'm interested in, but it surprised me.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's really striking to me to see sort of into Adrian's mind and how his mind works. In that sense of, like I said, I think the cover tells a lot of it all, where you see this sort of Zen, movement. I mean, that's a lot of what Adrian's mindset is. Like this early part of his life is about achieving perfection, of body and of mind. In more so of mind, but the body is important as well, and he does all of that. And they totally play on, like I said, there's a scene in here where, obviously we talk about the motivation for his for sort of becoming the Ozymandias, the superhero, is because of a relationship with a woman. But they make no mistake that he had a relationship with a man as well, and that's where I say, like, they balance out the sexuality question in here as well, which I like. I don't like just I don't want to.
Now, wasn't Alexander? Wasn't he also bisexual? I mean, is that maybe why they did that? Because he has this connection to Alexander the Great.
Yeah, I think the leaning was Alexander was at least bisexual, if not homosexual. I think some of the leanings. I
don't know my history well enough.
I think the leanings are that he was actually homosexual, not so much as bisexual. I think he did have a wife.
I just get this mental picture of Adrian just sort of chewing his lip and going, "Hell, if it's good enough for Alexander."
No, but he even made, but even in the biography part of it, it's still a bit undertonal, because he does he's obviously lying in bed sort of naked with his partner, and he refers to him as an acquaintance.
Yeah,
that's how Adrian Veidt thinks of lovers.
Yeah, well, and I think that is the thing too, because even in his relationship with the woman, it's still a bit distant. It's still
like when he's done with her, he's done. He turned his head away, and she's almost not there. He gives her money, and she just goes off. That's it.
And he's distraught when she comes, at the thing after. But then almost, I think it's more about the doing the stuff than it is about avenging her.
But there's that. There's maybe that, but then there's also the sense that I think maybe that was mine. That was his, and somebody took that.
Yeah. Yes, I think you're onto something there.
It's like, that was his to ignore if he wanted to, but that wasn't someone else's to come and take away from it.
Yeah, yep. I would buy that. So this is very good. I recommend reading it. If you're not picking up everything from before Watchmen, like I am for some reason, this would be one to check out. Like I said, if you're looking for something really different, if you want it to be in the Watchmen world with the boxes and everything, no, it's not that. This is something that is really willing to go outside the lines and try something different. So anyway, check it out.
Now we have to wait till next month for Rorschach and Dr. Manhattan. Huh?
I know.
Oh, really?
We're going through a full cycle of issues again now before we get to
I thought it would be like an issue every week. I didn't know we'd have to wait. Damn it.
No.
We get Minutemen next week, but then it's we go Minutemen.
Isn't that the second issue of Minutemen?
It's a whole. It's got a weird cycle to it. It's not.
Yeah, well, basically they're
linear.
cycling new things in at the end of every cycle. So next week we get Minutemen, and we get Silk Spectre, then we get Comedian, Night Owl, Ozymandias again. Then we get, I think it's Dr. Manhattan, and then Rorschach, and then it's Minutemen again, and then we go through the cycle like that.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's cool. So check that out. All right, Chris McFeely, sir.
All right, okay. No, I'm gonna try and keep this brief. I've been thinking about this one a lot.
All right, I'm timing you, sir, because we have 40 minutes. We have 40 minutes left. So you're thinking about how much time we want to talk about Amazing.
Keep this brief because there's a hell of a lot to say about Infernal Man-Thing, number one. Cast your minds back now. Cast your minds back with me to the 1970s. It was a strange time whenever the desire for comic books to become something more than children's entertainment that would really flower in the 80s met the style and approach of the 1960s. And a lot of odd things happened in the 70s as a consequence, not least of which was Marvel's launch of a horror line of comics, including most famously Tomb of Dracula, Tales of Frankenstein, Werewolf by Night, and The Man-Thing. The Man-Thing, after first appearing in Savage Tales and having a short run in Adventure into Fear, got his own series, which after only, I believe, one issue, the reins of writing were taken up by Steve Gerber. Now, Steve Gerber, it is very important to understand, was Alan Moore before Alan Moore was Alan Moore. Steve Gerber was doing the things and saying the things that you will find that this is what I'm in an era before it was the thing to do. Steve Gerber was a decade out of his time. His Man-Thing stories, ranged from supernatural to social dissection. Steve Gerber, well known for runs on Daredevil, Defenders, most famously created Howard the Duck. And unfortunately, like most people just don't know what is Howard the Duck was about because they hear Howard the Duck, they've seen the images of Howard, they mentally fabricate an idea of what the series is about. Worse yet, they've seen the film, and they base the series off of that. Steve Gerber's Howard the Duck is some of the finest, it was essentially all the mentality of an indie comic railing against the system, but produced under the Marvel label. That Howard the Duck is a duck is nothing to do with Howard could be a beaver or a talking mushroom for as much as it matters. All that matters is that Howard is the other, and that he is Steve Gerber's mouthpiece to comment on the idiosyncrasies and the superficiality of society. This is the defining feature of Steve Gerber's work, and it is incredibly important to understand when going into the Infernal Man-Thing. The Infernal Man-Thing is a sequel, actually, to a story originally printed in Man-Thing number 12 from way back when, which I have here in essential format sitting next to me for the video viewers at home, which was a story about a writer named Brian Lazarus, who withdrew to the Man-Thing swamp to write his treatise on the state of society, a man who had become completely disillusioned with the superficiality of the modern world, and who withdrew. But the Man-Thing swamp is a strange and supernatural place, and so all his fears and turmoil were becoming real, and they were emotionally tormenting the Man-Thing. And this was a common feature of Gerber's Man-Thing stories, was that they weren't actually about the Man-Thing. The Man-Thing just would tend to walk through someone else's drama. It was like an anthology series. I mean, there was a rotating cast of supporting characters and recurring villains and things like that, but by and large, every issue, or a couple of issues, was a separate group of people's stories. Whether it was about teens messing around with supernatural and witchcraft, or whether it was about evil, corrupt industrialists trying to dig up the swamp to find the fountain of youth, or if it was disfigured Vietnam veterans hunting the most dangerous game, man, throughout the swamp. Whatever it may have been, these things just happened around the Man-Thing. He was the sounding board for the emotion and the drama of the story. The story that this is a sequel to was called the Song Cry of the Living Dead Man, bit of purple prose from the 1970s. But it, spoilers for a 30-year-old story, 40-year-old story. It did conclude rather morbidly with the fact that you can't really fight the system. The system is the world. You are the system. As much as you might like to rail and shout and cry and wail against it and how it has done you wrong, you're as much a part of it as anything else in the world, and you are that's the central character. Brian Lazarus' position is that he is a living dead man, because while he may live within the system creatively and emotionally and in every way that matters, he is dead.
And his name is Lazarus.
There is also that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was following along.
Little on the nose. Now, the story ends with a slightly positive upbeat where Brian comes to believe that while he may be irrevocably trapped as part of the system, that does not mean that he cannot live within it. And then this happens. Infernal Man-Thing was originally conceived, actually, back in the 80s. To be, well, you can tell from the formatting of the artwork that this was probably going to be a Marvel graphic novel because it has extra large gutters at the top and the bottom, so it was going to be one of those wider, like square-sized Marvel graphic novels, but it isn't, sadly. As painted artwork by Kevin Nolan, and simply the length of time that the art was taking to be done meant that it just didn't seem like this graphic novel would ever be finished. The writing was done, but the art was taking so long it never seemed like it would happen. Now, as you may or may not know, Steve Gerber passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And if it hasn't been apparent from what I've said so far, Steve Gerber is one of my all-time favorite comic book writers. I read his Howard the Duck. Let's see, when did I read Howard the Duck? Probably when I was around 18 or 19, right in the heart of the Jesus, the world, teenage, turning into man bullshit. And their chords were struck, you know? And, you know, he just immediately became, and has always been one of my favorite writers. So the idea... The last thing Steve Gerber wrote was Countdown into Mystery for DC back during the Countdown period when he was writing the story of Dr. Fate. And he passed away one issue short of the end. And the final issue, with no plot or notes left behind, the final issue of Countdown to Mystery is 4 different writers, Adam Beechin, Gail Simone, and memory is escaping me on who the other 2 were offhand, imagining how he would have finished the story. But so this is the Steve Gerber lost work. You know, I would have piled every bit of Grant Morrison and Alan Moore into a pile in my garden and set it on fire if I could have had one more Steve Gerber story. And this is that story. And as I say, it's originally conceived as a sequel to Song Cry of the Living Dead Man, as Brian Lazarus returns to the swamp and meets up with the female character from the original story again. And essentially, we learn that in the intervening, because it's been 10 years, and X number of years in Marvel time, but it's been like more than 10 years in real time. This was to be published later in the 80s, and the original story was done in the 70s, that he went off to write for television. Basically, he came, like, as in the story, he came to this conclusion that it was possible, he came to sort of realization that it was possible to live within the system if he just sucked it up and got on with it. Not a happy ending to the original story. And we see how he went off to work in television and how he story edited some cartoons. And just one day, something went wrong, and that was it for Brian Lazarus. Like years of therapy and repression and a marriage and deliberately living the most normal life he could possibly live snapped. And he tried to make it on his own, writing a children's book called Mindy the Tree, but he couldn't get anybody to buy it. And with this story, he has returned to the swamp to try and finish his original work. And his hallucinations and his fears and his worries and all his troubles have started to manifest in the swamp again, and they're harming Man-Thing. I mean, literally, the Man-Thing is on like 4 pages of this. I'm sorry, 5 pages, 6, maybe half a dozen pages out of this story, because it is all about Brian driving through the swamp and talking and telling you his story as the Man-Thing suffers. What is so important to understand about this is that, you know, Steve Gerber always brought something of himself and his worldview to his work, but this, well, viewers of this show, because we have a lot of viewers, TF Radio Network, they may not know, but I'll tell you now. Steve Gerber actually was the story editor for the G.I. Joe cartoon and for the 3rd season of the Transformers cartoon.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, he specifically mentions that
I think you told me that one before. So.
Well, Brian Lazarus specifically mentions that he story edited a couple of hit shows like SST, Super Soldiers of Tomorrow. You know, if you know the parallels, they are there. Now, I'm not sure, you know, because I didn't know Steve Gerber. I didn't know the ins and outs of Steve Gerber, but there is some deeply personal reflections in this. Steve Gerber, he did suffer with bouts of depression in his life. He did genuinely have these issues with the superficiality of the world around him and the constraints that placed on his creativity. And this is when you recognize that, as I did, and as any fans of Steve Gerber who read this probably will do, it takes on this haunting sense. I mean, the fact is, this was a man who, after his original foray into writing in the 70s, went on to work in animation. This is the character in the comic I'm talking about. Went on to work in animation, and he proceeded to leave, and is now, in this adventure, writing a story about an animate plant. And I don't think the metaphor of returning to the swamp to once again work on your greatest piece of writing should be lost on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
There is just a really haunting candidness and person. You know, it's everything that was ever good about Steve Gerber comics in one package that takes on an infinitely more unsettling quality with the knowledge that this man has left this world now. It is words from beyond the grave. You know, there is a real irony, but not a bad irony, not a horrible irony, like a beautiful irony, in the fact that even though this was not his chronological last work, the last thing he wrote, that this should be his last published work, and this should go down as the epitaph of Steve Gerber. It's just a real dark poetry that I feel like he himself would have really appreciated, that this shall stand forevermore as being like the last representative work of Steve Gerber. You know, it is all at once. Like for every person who's had a creative mind, who has ever felt their creativity stifled by the demands of modern society and modern expectations and modern audiences. And not even that, you don't even have to have a creative mind. Anybody who's ever simply watched a film or television or read something and wanted a little bit more out of it that they have been denied by the limitations that modern audiences put upon us. And in this day, I mean, you have to remember, this was written in the 80s, off the back of Gerber's work in children's cartoons in the 80s, and as much as we may fill them with nostalgia now, there are few things more vapid than 1980s toy-based children's cartoons. But even in this day and age of sequels, prequels, remakes, reboots, and reinventions, these words are possibly even more relevant now than they were then. You know, it is simultaneously a celebration of creativity and a cautionary tale. It is equal parts manifesto and cautionary tale. It's celebration and condemnation, manifesto and cautionary tale. Yes, challenge convention, be creative, destroy boundaries, but be prepared to be destroyed yourself in return. You know, it's like you're a living dead man if you live within the system, and you'll be dead inside. But if you break out of the system, then be prepared to be dead in every other respect, socially, financially, emotionally. It's a zero-sum game. There is no win for this character. And remember, this is issue 1 of a 3-issue miniseries, I should say. I am saying all of this based entirely on...
I was going to ask if this is a mini or not.
There cannot be a happy ending to this story. And nor would one expect there to be. I mean, one would imagine it'll probably be the Man-Thing will eventually... Emotions will rise, the Man-Thing will be brought, and whatever knows fear. I fear this will be the end of Brian Lazarus' story, as much as it can be the end of Steve Gerber's story. It is... You know, I read this a couple of times this week. Like, there's just an incredible poetry in the fact that a work that was never intended to be his last and was written nearly 30 years ago. 30 years ago? Yeah, nearly 30 years ago. No, well, it was maybe closer to 20. But that it should resonate as strongly now, possibly even stronger, as it did when he was saying it back then, and that it should sum up so intensely and brought into sharp focus by the fact that he is no longer with us, his entire worldview and the things he himself struggled with in his life and in his work. For it to stand as his final work, I don't have the words. You know, I mean, I recommend this to anybody in like the highest possible way, anybody with a creative mind, as I was saying, or anybody who has felt the sting of corporate, creative blinding. Could not. I mean, I recommend Steve Gerber anything. And there's a new omnibus edition of his Man-Thing coming out very soon. If you want to read some of the best comics put to paper in the 70s, who did all this. I mean, just last week I was talking about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Century, where Alan Moore pontificates on how all fiction is shit. But where Alan Moore pontificates, Steve Gerber merely quietly laments what it means to him. Alan Moore has the bolshy, grouchy old manness about him to say, fiction is shit, and so the world is shit as a result. But Steve Gerber presents himself through Brian Lazarus as the one guy going, why? As the one guy who was unable to reconcile all of his feelings with the rest of the world around him. It's the same message told in two completely different ways, and I know which way resonates stronger with me and which I enjoy more. And lovely painted artwork as well. To bring it up, Kevin Nolan does it. He does a very off-model rendition of the Man-Thing that does not look like you would normally expect the Man-Thing to look, but it works well within the confines of the story. And really, I might recommend this as high as anything as I could possibly recommend that I have talked about on Fanboy Versus before. But I don't.
There's a but?
There is a but. There is a but.
Okay.
I actually don't recommend going out to your comic shop and trying to pick up this issue. Because, as I said, this was originally intended for a graphic novel format. This is not a story that was based on Gerber's notes or finished off the basis of them or anything. This was a story that was done, and in large chunks of it were done years and years ago, artistically speaking. This has just had to be roughly serialized. And to be fair, this issue does it pretty well. It reaches in the course of its... There's no ads in this. There's 32-page comic, no ads. It reaches a logical end point, like the first chapter of the story, Brian's history and where he has come to now. But there is the sense that the final page of the story, where Brian, who is hallucinating all the way through this, Mindy the Tree, his character that he invented that he was trying to write about, appears in his van beside him as he drives into the swamp and talks to him, like he's gone, But it's reminiscent of an issue of Howard the Duck that Steve Gerber once wrote. It's a rather famous issue of Howard where he was late on a deadline, couldn't deliver the next part of the actual ongoing Howard story, and just delivered an illustrated text piece of himself having a conversation with Howard about the state of the comics industry. That's just the sort of stuff that happened in Steve Gerber's heart. But the last page of this story is Brian seeing a large illusory television appearing in the swamp before him, which says 2 in high definition where available. Even though there wasn't a chapter header for 1, it does feel an awful lot like the last page of this story is the chapter heading page for chapter 2 of the book. And as I say, 32-page story. You get a 1-page text introduction by Ralph Macchio, who was the original editor who what's the word? Commissioned the original work. 19 pages of screenplay of The Living Dead Man was the original title of the story. And then a reprint of, a next issue page and a reprint of 10 pages of the original Death Cry of the Living Dead Man from Man-Thing. And it's just, the fact that they reprint only 10, it was an 18-page story. They reprint now. I happen to have read it, so I'm okay. But anybody who hasn't read it, who may be picking this up, I know somebody who was, and he has no frame of reference for the story at all. It doesn't even mention on the inside cover that the story is printed in the back. So you'll get to it, and you'll think, oh, hooray, here's this, I can read this now. Except they only print 10 pages of it. So there's only 8 pages left of the story, so I don't know how they're going to break that up over the next 2 issues of this. And even if they stretch it out to the end, that means that any new reader will be completely robbed of context for the issue and only receive it at the end of the miniseries. So the presentation is a real mess. But they have already announced the graphic novel collection of this. Unfortunately, it's only in paperback. It should have been a fucking premiere hardcover as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure it'll just be normal comic book format, not the expanded, larger page style that it deserves. But that is what I recommend anybody to go out and pick up. This is now best miniseries of the year for me. Next year when we get to the end of the year when we're doing the votes, this takes it. Something's going to have to come along and blow my mind to replace Infernal Man-Thing as the top miniseries of the year. But don't get it as a miniseries. I'll tell you when the graphic novel comes out. I'll keep you abreast. For God's sake, go and get it. Its words are more meaningful now than they ever were. It will stand now as probably one of the greatest pieces and one of the pieces that most sums up like the entire worldview in a neat pocket and all the real life issues that the writer faced and that influenced his work for so many years. This will just be the essence of Steve Gerber, who is, who put some of the finest stories to paper in the 1970s, will be now summed up in one book. And you will do yourself a disservice if you do not read the Infernal Man thing. That is all I have to say about that.
Okay. Awesome. That is
cool.
Wow. Great.
I was regretting not getting this, and now I'm not because I'll get the trade.
I feel okay. I'll get the trade when it comes out. So, I'm going to have to ask, though, Christmas Field, you have to read less interesting things.
Yeah, sorry.
You're really going to have to read more boring stuff, because...
I've been thinking about that all week. I read it a couple of times. I got the Essential volume out of storage to reread the original story. I tried to sum up in my head how I was going to distill it down, but it still got away from me. But
no, it's okay. It's cool. No, it's cool. It's like, I like that you're very passionate about it, and like I said, it sounds like something really awesome. So, no, we are going to... it is worth the time. It is worth the time.
The next episode, Chris McFeely will review Deathstroke. Just put it out there.
Right. Yeah. You have to. Your punishment for the last 2 weeks. Your punishment for taking up 20 to 30 minutes over the last 2 weeks is to read Deathstroke.
How long was that? That wasn't that long.
Dude, it was 20.
Oh, wait. I tweeted it. Wait, I tweeted it.
I have a timer. It was 20 minutes. It's okay.
That was never 20 minutes.
It was 20.
Dirty lie.
Dude, I told you when you started, we had 40 minutes left in the show. We now have 18:57.
Hey, I would give him more of my time.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not I am not knocking it. I am not knocking it at all. That's why I said it's good stuff. I am more than happy to cede the time to you. I'm just saying you're going to have to review Deathstroke. So let's talk about Amazing Spider-Man then with the time that we have left.
Yep.
Let's just go full spoilers here, all right?
Yeah,
if you have not watched Amazing Spider-Man, then stop now, go watch it, come back. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to spill all the beans here. So
we'll see you next week. Go and watch it. Bye.
If you haven't seen it, bye-bye. We'll see you next week. Okay, we're glad that you watched it, and now you're back listening to the last part of the show. So, quick synopsis, if I can. So there's this thing where, it starts out with Peter playing hide and seek and finds out the house has been broken into, and someone's trying to steal his dad's research. You can see in his sort of study that there's all kinds of science-y things. And the dad comes in quite shocked, grabs a few things, pulls out the secret door, and it's there, and then wipes off a board, drops the kid off at his Aunt and Uncle's, and then never returns. And that's the first part. It's like, wow, that's really different, but okay. So Peter's a high school student, pretty typical as far as that. Although I will say the interesting thing is that, it's not that Peter doesn't get picked on early in this, but really there's subtle differences about Peter throughout this film. One thing that's different is, like, Peter is sort of, like, picked on, but he's not, like, the one being picked on. And he's sort of, like, there's a scene early where
sort of picked on for going to bat for the one that...
Yeah, and that's what happens. Like, he intercedes.
Well, he's basically... He's not... Okay, so first of all, I'm going to be making a lot of Raimi movie comparisons here.
Sure.
I rewatched the Raimi movies in the run-up to this, and there's no getting out of it because the movie is absolutely living in those movie shadows. But where Peter Parker hasn't been a nerd in comics for like 40 years, but when the Raimi movies did, they were full-on hardcore bleeding edge accuracy to the Lee and Ditko comics as far as the origin went. And so Peter Parker was the 1960s stereotype, 1950s really almost, stereotype of the nerd, which has survived in popular culture like through the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like in this film, what he's really doing is he's playing the modern high school outsider.
Yeah, which is sort of like the odd kid,
And I would add that I hated Flash Thompson in the Sam Raimi movies because he was a non-character.
Yeah, and here's like a real. I was like, it's a real Flash. It's a real.
For God's sake, he called it Eugene made me want to cry. I was like,
I mean, I think that the Raimi movies did fine by Flash for what they did with him. They put him in there for the role that Flash generally has. But like one of my biggest problems with the first Raimi movie is and will always be, and one of the reasons I was really on this movie's side from the minute we started hearing things about it, was that they left high school within like 45 minutes of the film.
Yeah,
and I was like, you can't do that. That's not right.
Yeah,
this one kept it in high school. First of all, that had me in its camp right away.
Yeah, Peter's in high school throughout all this film. But so we get introduced to Peter, who's sort of like the awkward, he's like that modern version. Like you said, he's awkward. He's obviously smart. I mean, there's several references to that throughout the film. But he's not like the nerdy science kid, in this.
Well, I like what they do is like they make it that. I mean, okay, it's a bit much to be fair, but the whole lock on the door operated by the computer, like that's a bit much, all right? But it does say Peter Parker is good at engineering.
Right.
And it's like, well, we see what happens with the web shooters in this one. Now, I never had an issue with the organic web shooters in the Raimi films.
My God, web shooters is the best thing ever.
No, it's great.
To hell with that.
On the other hand, maybe had more of an issue with the organic web shooters.
Right.
I'll educate you people on why web shooters is the best thing ever to the movieverse. Because you can't tell stories where his webbing runs out without any logical sense unless it's actually mechanical. Oh, right. I had a bad day. My webbing quit working. That sucks.
Okay. So let's
underwater and his web shooters quit working. That makes sense. They're mechanical. Hey, I ran out of webbing. Hey, they quit. Hey, a burglar stole it and thought it was a sophisticated watch. There you go. I'm missing a web shooter. Awesome. Okay.
See,
so
I
didn't
have a problem with organic stuff. I did not have a problem with organic
They
stuff.
both work. I mean, we're talking about the same time ultimately. Let's step through the film real quick, and then we
hang
can...
on. I had a point there, which was that we see the origin of the web in this one, which is that it is a bio product that Oscorp creates using the spider Peter gets bitten by. And at first I went, I don't know what I think about that. That seemed a little odd to me. But then like they make it Peter Parker is good at engineering, but he is not a weird Reed Richards, Hank Pym comic book good at all sciences scientist.
Right.
He's not a chemical engineer. He buys I was a little surprised you could just buy that shit from Oscorp, and I was like, but it was behind so many doors.
Yeah.
Surely it's top secret. But no, I guess it is just a commercial product you can buy. But then he actually invents the web shooter with his engineering skills, and I'm like, yes, okay, that's a hop.
He takes one product that's meant for something else and uses it in a different way. I mean, he finds a different way to use it. But yeah, because it was originally just meant as like a roping product, but he uses it different. So it's kind of cool. But anyway, so the early part, like I said, in the early part of the film, so we see Peter. There's an early part where he comes home, and there's like a water break or something, and he finds his father's bag. And of course, in the bag, he finds this like formula and a picture of Dr. Connors. Lo and behold, finds out that Connors worked with his dad, so he's trying to, of course, look for part of his past. I'm sorry, Chris McFeely, put his hand up.
No, I was just going,
aha, yes. So there's like an aha connection. So Peter is he's very smart in this, and again, he's smart in sort of a street smart almost kind of way, where he's sort of tricky. And so like he goes up to the desk, and he's trying to get into Oscorp to go see Dr. Connors, and talks to the girl at the desk and saying he was there to see Dr. Connors, which of course it just happens there's like this tour, so he grabs one of the badges and latches onto it. And it also turns out like Gwen actually is like interning at this lab, which is a little bit of a reach, but okay, whatever. I mean, it seems a little bit reachy for a high school student to be working at this huge, sophisticated lab.
Come on, look at her. She's got.
What are you saying, JD?
Everywhere. Of course, you're gonna hire her.
JD, what are you saying? Are you saying that blondes can't be scientists?
No, that's not it at all.
Are you saying gorgeous-looking Emma Stone as a blonde can't be a scientist?
No. I'm saying
a
high school student. I'm saying any high school student. It would be, I'm saying it's a little bit of a reach to say a high school student would be interning at a major corporate lab. There are plenty of college interns that are like trying to get jobs like that. So to say that there would be like a high school student there at that level, that seems a little far reach. But whatever, that doesn't matter.
She's smart.
So she of course picks out Peter, and Peter can't keep quiet. and makes himself known in the group as he mentions a few things to Dr. Connors, because again, he's smart, but like you said, he's more engineering, but he at least is able to like connect things in his mind. And so there's a great point too where the guy whose badge he took gets like carted out by the security.
You just robbed that poor kid of a chance at an education.
Dude, he should come back as a villain.
Yeah, that would be great.
The intern.
Yes, that'd be a Spider-Man kind of villain. But Peter, of
Bill
course,
Mantlo probably created that guy in the 70s.
Peter apparently doesn't watch Doctor Who because he goes wandering off and finds himself in like a spider lab, and
It was behind so many doors.
Yeah, but he, and again, Peter's like engineer because he watches the guy do the little, basically it's like a really, but not really advanced version of like the lock on your smartphone.
Yeah.
And so he like breaks in
I was just looking at that and going, that seems needlessly complex. You need a key there would probably be fine.
Key would have actually
Those holograms probably cost money.
A key probably would have been more secure than the little code thing. But of course Peter goes in and sees all these spiders, and then one of them gets on him and he gets bit. And like immediately,
that part really creeped me out.
Oh god, he had all the glowing spiders all over him. My wife
got the chills. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I'm
not scared of spiders, but it's just like, oh.
Oh, my wife is deathly afraid. Like I'm like, oh man, I can't even take her to this movie.
I liked how vague they were about the spiders as well, because you see them getting like zapped with stuff as well, and you're like, yeah, whatever, that's nice and vague. And then you're like, okay, Raimi movie comparison coming up. It's like they're genetically engineered, and that's it.
Yeah.
Apparently, being genetically engineered allows you to pass super spider powers on just from normally biting somebody, and it's like radiation was weird and generic and nebulous enough to make that work. So here you see weirdo spiders with unexplained origins getting zapped by unknown energies and then biting him. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works. That works. And he like almost immediately starts manifesting powers. Like he's on the subway home, and hey, they actually did a decent job, at least early in the film, of displaying spider sense, which I thought was something that was always horribly missing from the Raimi films.
There's really just that one time in the Raimi films, isn't there, when he's at school?
Because it's inconvenient, because you want Spider-Man to like get hit and be surprised and
well,
all those
it's also
things.
very hard to do.
Well, but
when you have to turn everything into bullet time, you can't just have the lightning flashes around the head.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to kind of. But I thought they did a good job of.
I wouldn't complain if he had the snakes coming out of his head.
Yeah, that could happen. But I think they did a good job with sort of like the flashes of images, or for the fighting sequences, it was just him moving very quickly, almost moving.
I like how they showed, how they kind of explained it as in a film, how his spider sense works, and how like he's aware of everything in the room. I thought that was really cool. I mean, that just kind of goes back to Daredevil when Mark Waid's doing Daredevil, and you get the images of like how Daredevil's senses works. It worked really well in the movie because I got it, and I don't know if other viewers got it as well as I did, but it's just kind of cool. Everything in the damn room he's aware of, and it's like he has to be a Matt Murdock to kind of deal with that shit. I don't see why he's not crazy,
Well, because it like levels out, because he's able to sort of pick the decipher like the spikes from the noise, and I think that's what ends up happening. It's just like. When like he gets up that next morning and is like breaking the door, because he gets up and like he's trying to brush his teeth and like sprays toothpaste all over everything, breaks the door handles. There's one point where he's just like sitting outside, holding a toothbrush in one hand and a doorknob in the other, and he's just like, well, damn.
that was, I think, a much better use to show off that he has gone through this change than, hey, Tobey Maguire wakes up and now he's got like pecs.
Now he's got muscles. Yeah.
He's got muscles.
I mean, having muscles is no good for now. I mean, let's just talk about how good Andrew Garfield was.
Oh yeah.
I mean, let's just talk about how much he kicks Tobey Maguire up and down.
Oh,
what I always said about Tobey Maguire was that Tobey Maguire was a good Peter Parker. He wasn't a very good Spider-Man.
Right.
Because when you are all muscular and shit, you do just sort of look pudgy in the Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, but he looks really thin.
Andrew Garfield, and I said this as soon as we saw the first full-body look of him in costume, Andrew Garfield looks like a Steve Ditko drawing.
I've always liked
a
slender Spider-Man. I mean, that's the way I've always liked him.
You want him to be spindly, for sure.
Spidery.
Yeah. But this begins like, and I like... So this begins like the whole movement towards like origin, where we have the origin is the bite, but it's like there's a whole gap there between you know, being bitten and then actually becoming Spider-Man. And that's like the interesting bit for Peter, because
I wasn't even sure what they were doing with the origin, because when I was
yeah.
I was like, is Uncle Ben even gonna die in this movie?
I did wonder.
Because,
I did
man,
wonder.
I was like wondering, really. It's like, wow, is the origin gonna be like 3 movies? Is what I was thinking.
And you know, one of the you know, for as much as the Raimi movies, especially the first one, tried to hold to the comic, you know, one of the parts it diverged on was, you know, Uncle Ben getting shot, where it doesn't happen in the house, it happens, you know.
Well, that's like the primary thing you do have to do. Like, I mean, here's the thing, right? I feel like this movie, in addition to living in the shadow of the film simply because it comes so soon after them, this one in particular genuinely does live in the shadow of the Raimi movies, and you do get the sense that they do change something, like the costume, for instance, like, you know, different colored fingers, no belt, little swirls, not major differences, but you get the feeling that those are changed and that a lot of the elements of the origin are changed, not necessarily where the spiders come from and the parent thing, that's just a fresh take on the story, but just like what he goes through after with the shooting and everything, that those are really just changed so that they're not the same as the Raimi movies.
Yeah,
but
it's
not
I think,
really about trying to tell a more fluid story or something that works best on the screen.
Personally think that the way they handled Uncle Ben dying worked better in like today's world. Like, I mean, think of it. 1960s, how many people is going to, like, maybe back then, but like today, how many people is like going to break in, and then Uncle Ben's going to wrestle them, and then they're going to get shot. No, they're going to go rob a gas station, and while they're leaving, they may, like, you know, shoot someone.
I don't know.
Well, remember that's how the Raimi movies did it as well. Like, Ben was carved. Basically, like, that's the one big coincidence that gets taken out of the movies, because it is just a massive coincidence, and it also neatly shortens down the time gap very nicely as well. In that Ben is shot by
they can't go back and say Sandman killed him, because we saw that dude and he didn't look like Sandman.
Yeah.
Well,
so
it's like they change it so that the robber kills him immediately after the thing that's happened, and it happens because Ben is there because of Peter. Like, he has followed Peter there.
He's looking for him. He's worried about him.
So there is a much more direct sense of blame to be had. And not just he didn't stop the robber, but because Ben is there because of him as well. And I mean, they go the ultimate route with this one, in that it's a convenience store robber that he doesn't stop. Like, that's just right out of the Ultimate Comics, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the way that you get up to that, I mean, there's a whole deal. I'm trying to remember there was a deal where he was supposed to, he was at school and got into a fight with Flash. Oh no, they were doing the basketball thing. Like, he was playing basketball and ended up breaking the rim, and
that was awesome, by the way, because I love for the days when Peter Parker will show up Flash Thompson. You know, he doesn't have to fight him or whatever.
Just show him up.
Totally schooling his ass. You know, I really, really enjoyed that scene.
I hope that Flash Thompson is in the sequels, because I really like Flash in the movies. But I really like him.
But Ben has
he only gets that little role, but it's like after Ben gets shot.
Well, especially with how it ended. But so Ben has to come to the school to pick up Peter, which means he's got to pick up another shift, which means Peter needs to pick up his Aunt May, which he totally doesn't do because he ends up off doing something else. I can't remember.
Connor's lab.
Yeah, he goes to Connor's lab and talks to Connors and all that stuff. So when he gets home,
he's got a date with Doctor.
Yeah. So when he gets home, he's in like trouble because, you know, Ben's pissed because he basically had taken on a responsibility to do something, gives him a line about. Now, he got very close to the with great power comes great responsibility without actually saying those words, which I thought was interesting.
Again, I think that's another Raimi movie carryover thing, that they don't want to be just totally lifting the dialogue, you know?
But I liked it, and okay, this is the way I like how they did it too, because it kind of felt like you didn't really get so much the great power, great responsibility speech right there, but the way the post-death message,
the voicemail.
I felt like later. that is the great power, great responsibility.
Yeah, it gives it's the essence without saying the words,
and that was just really well played out. And my God, dude, Martin Sheen looks like fucking Uncle Ben. It's amazing.
Yeah, like seriously, he was so good. I did not think that would happen, but
it's like they ripped him from the pages. Okay, the dude that had Spawn killed like 15 years ago in a movie about Spawn is Uncle Ben now, and it's amazing. He looks just like he does in the comic.
Yeah,
I mean, Clyde Robertson was really good in the Raimi movies too, but like I was just really surprised by Martin Sheen. Like, not so much Sally Fields. Like, like she was
it was
never going to be as good as Rosemary Harris was. She just got fewer weird rambling monologues.
Yeah.
But
I still want my Aunt May to have a little bit of gray hair to her. More gray.
But that leads to like this whole scene where like Ben is wandering around the city trying to find Peter, because Peter of course storms out and breaks the door, which I thought that was going to lead to the robbery, but it didn't. But yeah, there's a whole sequence that takes place in a convenience store. Basically, the sequence is Peter's trying to buy this milk. The guy at the counter gives him a hard time because he didn't have 2 pennies and won't let him take 2 pennies out of the take a penny, give a penny.
That guy deserves to get robbed every day for.
Well, that's but then how would you feel if your uncle died?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. So he's like, so whatever. Peter leaves, and as the like store owner turns around, the other guy that was behind him takes the money out of the register and throws Peter the milk. So Peter actually steals the milk in that scene as well. And then as the convenience store guy goes running off, the owner that was a little bit forced, where the guy's like, well, help. I was like, Peter's way the hell over there. He's not
over there. You're closer, fatto.
Yeah, go run, fat boy. So Peter's like, gives him kind of the line back, not my policy or whatever. And then of course but I thought it was a great point for Ben, because it wasn't just Ben getting shot. He sees the gun and then struggles with the guy and then gets shot. So it was
Ben does the thing that Peter should have done. He should have stopped him, and then he gets shot because of it.
Yeah.
You notice what both movies do that neither the Ultimate nor the original comics do, is that they actively make it so that Peter has been wronged by the guy. The promoter give him the money and the cashier gives him a hard time. So that's why it's not that he's actually being a dick off of his own power the way he is in the comics. Or the Spider-Man origin story that do require a changing to really just function the best way possible on the screen, and these are they, taking the coincidence out, changing the nature of the crime, like.
Yeah. So, after Ben gets shot and everything, that leads to this long sort of hero journey for Peter, where he's like starts the whole crime fighting thing, but it's not really crime fighting, because it's sort of, he's trying to find the guy that killed Uncle Ben.
It's a revenge quest. He's looking for that guy.
Yeah, it's very much a revenge quest. All the other people...
And I like that he doesn't find him.
No, he never finds him.
Sam Raimi's movie, he found him really quick, and he died really quick.
Yeah, and that was it.
And that was it, and it was done. But no, this is left open. This is something he still has to do. Much with Batman's parents dying. Didn't find him eventually, immediately. He found him years later, and it's interesting that they went that route too. I mean, because that was
because they could totally go in like a whole different direction. Like this guy could become Shocker or something. It's like
I would dig it.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's about giving Peter a reason to journey into heroism. Because again, you look at even the original comics, or you look at the Raimi movies. Again, this is not the Raimi, because this is just him going. It's like, oh, Uncle's dead. Best fight crime then. There's no point A to point B. It's just like, I guess I will suddenly go on the world stage.
He already had. This film did a good job of not doing the wrestling route, but still giving an explanation.
He still wound up in a wrestling ring.
He still ended up. Well, yeah, that did happen, but it allowed him to do the pressure. Like he starts out just fighting in street clothes, and then the guy's like, "I saw your face," and so he ends up in the ring, like under the street. And he's like, okay, a mask. I need to wear a mask. So he puts a mask on. Then it's like, well, I could probably move faster if I put on more sleek clothing. So it becomes like a natural progression of him, moving towards the costume. And also during this, he's building the web shooters and everything else.
I kind of got the Batman feeling out of that, like the whole they don't fear me because they see my face. They don't fear me. I need a mask, something they'll be afraid of. A spider luchador mask.
Villains.
Swear to me. I'm done.
It's like, who are you? I'm Spider-Man. I mean, he even says that in the film.
Yeah, it says it in the film. Yeah. But during this time, and
A to point B. It's like, how do you go from Uncle died to defender of all that is just and good in the world? You know, it's the in-between step is missing from Spider-Man's origin.
Yeah, which I think they do a nice job of throwing in, I mean, because it starts out as sort of a personal quest and then becomes about that responsibility.
If I remember right, Kurt Busiek did a miniseries about that once. It was called Amazing Fantasy, and it was Amazing Fantasy 16 to 18. It was a 3-issue miniseries about how Spidey went from where he was at the end of Amazing Fantasy 15 to where he was in Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Oh, that's cool.
I never read it. Was it good?
I'll have to read it.
It's been so long since I read it, I don't remember the specifics of it at all.
Don't even know it was good. But during this, of course, Connors there's something with Oscorp. There's odd things behind the scenes, and you know, obviously they've set this up for more films. But for some reason,
dying.
Norman Osborn is dying. We don't know why.
I mean, we've got
they say he's dying, but does that necessarily mean he is dying? I kind of thought that was more.
changing.
I kind of more thought that was as an excuse to, hey, you got to get your shit done because, hey, the boss is dying. He needs this. I thought it was more like, hey, he just wants you to get it done faster.
I don't know. It seemed like that was like an imminent thing, but
we never see him though. So,
but obviously there's some tie to why his father went missing, why his father hid the algorithm.
There's a couple of ideas. I mean, the idea that the parents went missing, that's from the mainstream comics, of course. But they were super spies who went off to fight the Red Skull and died in the mainstream comics. This is much more in line, again, with the Ultimate Comics, where his parents were scientists who had to disappear because of the nature of their work, and with possible involvement of foul play, they died in a plane crash. That's pure. That's totally out of the Ultimate.
Right.
But it's like here they're working for Oscorp, whereas what they were doing just wasn't. I mean, in the Ultimate Comics, it turns out what they were doing was they built Venom.
Yeah.
That's where the symbiote came from in the Ultimate Comics. It was a cancer-curing bodysuit, like biosuit that they had invented.
And they worked with Eddie Brock's dad. That's how Eddie Brock got involved.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So, so there's something.
But here it's Connors. So this is the thing that I've seen something people make points about Connors is that the deal with Kurt Connors, of course, is that he is supposed to be a good man whose altruism is ultimately his downfall. And that's not quite. They suggest here that there is a darker side to him, that he may have had some kind of hand. I mean, he pleads the fifth. He pretends and professes innocence, but the suggestion is he might have had something to do with what happened,
or at least knew what happened, was a part of
it.
Yeah,
like he has knowledge of it at least, and
but they do.
He's holding something back.
Yeah, they don't take his altruism away completely, because I mean, in the end, the only reason that he tests the serum on himself is so that helpless people who don't know anything about it won't become Oscorp's guinea pigs instead. He does inject himself for an altruistic reason.
Yeah.
So it's not completely lost.
No, I mean, he does try that.
He comes back at the end too. I mean, he fights it there. He could. He could let Spidey die at the end.
Well, that's like we were saying earlier. There's one lizard story, okay, and this is that lizard story. And
that's really what the rest of this is. I mean, is that lizard story.
I argue that there's that second lizard story that's currently going on in the comic right now.
That's. I mean, but I was concerned that we were going to just get a monster lizard, But no, he talked. He did science. He had a lab
coat.
He had a lab in the sewers. Like, that's the most unfeasible, unhygienic thing possible.
Yep.
But I don't care. And he tried to mutate everybody into lizard men with his evil gas cloud.
The lizards just bit the lizards into him and everything, just like the comics.
Yeah.
The only thing missing, is the whole son thing. And really, it's Peter steps into that role.
Yeah.
Really is the way it's like, rather than involve the whole family, it's like he just becomes a bit of, he's the last connection that he has outside of his aunt and uncle to his family. Peter, I mean, is Connors is the last.
Peter,
So that's why he gets as invested as he does and everything. So then Connors, Peter stands in for Billy in the story, and then he does save him at the very end, just as the effects of the formula are wearing off, and it's so it's the one lizard story that there is.
The other thing that I guess we'll mention is the growing relationship with Gwen Stacy in this, where it was sort of an awkward flirtation at first, and then she invites him over for dinner, which turned into be a really awkward moment.
Oh, look, I mean, I think we said it in past shows. It's like, we know why Jonah Jameson's not in this film, because you're never going to get anybody better than J.K. Simmons was.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to
I was really hurting when there was no Jameson, but then again, there's no
But
better
if
than
you could,
J.K. Simmons.
it's like it would be weird to have J.K. Simmons play him in the first one when it's a whole reboot thing. But now you've gone one without him. You can bring J.K. back for the second one. It's okay. You've established that this is a new universe now.
Yeah.
We will totally
Yes,
forgive you.
please.
We'd be
Right.
totally okay
It
with
would
bringing
be
him back.
fine.
But it's
Yes,
like
yes,
so Captain
Well,
Stacy
forget-
really
if-
fills the Jonah role in this.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
which
but
I
the-
thought.
dude,
Speaking out
Dennis
again.
Leary is great as Captain Stacy.
Oh,
I
my
did
God.
not.
That's
I
what I was
wasn't
gonna say.
sure. I wasn't sure, but man, I really like Dennis Leary as Captain
Oh
Stacy.
man.
Because like Captain Stacy is supposed to be a friendly old man, and but I mean I was surprised. Like spoilers, I was really surprised when he died at the end. Because I mean that's what
Ah,
Captain Stacy.
I
Oh.
wanted to make it until at least the second movie.
I don't know. I kind of knew early on it was like either him or Gwen was going to have to die. One of these Stacys is not making it to the end of this film. I don't know who, but one of them isn't.
Well, I mean, of course, Captain Stacy dying is like one of the first big deaths after Uncle Ben, obviously, that
Yeah.
affects Spidey, you know. But it's like it's weird how they totally flip.
Yes.
What happens, guys, when like in the comics, Captain Stacy made Spider-Man first of all revealed to Spider-Man that he'd always known he was Peter, first of all, and made him promise to look after Gwen always. And here it's totally flipped, where he says, "Keep away from my daughter, you," but not in a mean way. You
No,
know,
it
it's
was
like-
more of like
Yeah.
your life is
Yeah.
going to be dangerous. You know, don't bring her into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the,
But isn't Emma Stone just lovely?
she's great.
She
Yeah.
is.
And I don't mean that in like a salacious way. I don't mean that in like in Emma Stone hot, pretty girl, no question.
No,
But
she's.
isn't she just lovely?
I mean, well, I mean,
love
This
Emma Stone.
nebulous
She's
sense of
one my
loveliness.
this Gwen, you know, to compare her to what we had like in the Raimi films, because again, we're never going to be able to break this. But when you talk about like Mary Jane, it was like it's just a totally different thing. It's like this Gwen is smart, sexy without being overly sexualized. Honest, believable, smart, just really.
It's a real relationship versus
Yes.
what you got in the first
Whatever
movie.
that
Because-
thing was in the Raimi
Because
film.
like,
no,
me and Brian talked about it, and he's like, it was just really refreshing that they take their time with their relationship as it builds. Where like for the first thing you're still like, there's the girl, that's my girl, I'm a stalker watching
Yeah,
her from the
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in Sam Raimi's movie, it's very just
Yeah.
I also think that it helps that Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield have an off-screen relationship, so you can see that it worked well on the on-screen.
I don't know. I mean, I never put much credit in that one way or the other because I've seen characters that hate each other that the actors are in relationships. So good actors make that happen, and I think that and good writing too. And I think that the characters are written in such a way that the relationship builds from an infatuation with each other, not a crazy stalker one. But an actual,
you look at the Raimi movies, and Mary Jane. Well, first of all, like Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane is consistently one of the primary things that is wrong with the Sam Raimi movies.
Kirsten Dunst is just wrong. Period.
Yeah.
She
She's
should not be
just-
allowed in Hollywood.
Awful. She was a terrible choice for Mary Jane. But never mind the fact that all three movies treat Mary Jane as a prize to be won.
Yeah.
Particularly the first movie, where she literally goes through 4 guys. She's Flashes in high school, breaks up with him for no good reason.
Yep.
She's then Harry's for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then from her perspective, it's 4 guys, because then she falls for Spider-Man, and then she decides she loves Peter at the very end without knowing he's Spider.
You forgot about John Jameson, so I guess.
And
there's
that's the next movie as well. And
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
random because it's like, well, we need to have somebody for him to win her away from. So
Yeah, and it does. She does become sort of like a trophy rather than being, I don't know, a
Mary
character.
Jane, rather than being Mary Jane,
Yeah.
the party girl, like who did like, everything. There's nothing of Mary Jane in her, and it's wrong.
But this
and Emma
this Gwen
Stone's
is
best.
great. I mean, she's smart.
Yeah.
She works at the lab. She comes up with the antidote at the end,
Yeah.
like all on her own. Like
And you know what else? She's
she's
never the
not-
damsel in distress.
No.
you
That's
know?
what I was
The
gonna
lizard-
say. Yeah, she's not the
the liz-
damsel. That's
she's in harm's way, like in the scene where it's like the lizard is coming to the lab and like she's in harm's way, but never is like Peter's like, I've got to get there to save Gwen.
Well, I
It's
mean,
like,
that's kind of what
you know.
he's thinking. But like the lizard finds her in the locker and rips her, but all he does is take the machine, and she's like, I'm grand, love, see ya, you can give him a bye. It's not like he grabs her and hangs her off something like every
Yeah.
villain in the fucking
Yeah.
Raimi movie
Well,
You
because
must save the world,
Well,
or you're a
because
woman,
Connor's
Spider-Man.
brain is still in there, and he still respects her, and he's gonna make her better. He's gonna make her a lizard.
It's like,
You know.
Right.
So,
Yep.
but I mean, there was a couple of points. Like, there's one point early where.
Before we get off the romance, though, can we just take a minute to address these whole Twilight things people have been saying? Where people have talked about this as like a Spider-Man story for the Twilight generation.
No, screw that.
And
Whatever.
Can we just tell them to fuck off?
Yes.
Yeah,
Because
go ahead.
I've been saying this for a while now to people who have asked me. I don't think I've said it on the show before. If I have, forgive me for repeating myself. But essentially what I want to say is that Peter Parker has been keeping women at arm's length because of the danger that his powers pose to them for fucking decades.
Yeah.
Before Edward Cullen was making bored housewives and teenage girls wet in the knickers, okay? So shut up.
He said that on air. That's awesome. Anyway, but yes, that's true. I mean, no, this is just the Peter way. I mean, this is just the way that that comic is. It has nothing to do with Twilight nonsense.
I mean, he's got big hair like James Patterson. Maybe that's where people are getting it from. I don't know.
So what?
Do not
Robert-
put Andrew Garfield in the same category as no.
Because let's think for a minute about how great Andrew Garfield was.
Oh man. Well, and like I said, this is like a very dirty because he's very well, and you get that sense that like this is a kid that's sort of awkward. And he does, in some respects, lack confidence, and that's where like the comedy comes from. Because like when he's Spider-Man, he does like
He's
the quips.
funny.
He's
Holy
funny.
crap.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a
Funny,
whole.
not funny like goofy funny. It's like, well, I went into this whole speech back when we were talking about the evolving state of superhero cinema, but it's like something I realized when I was rewatching the Raimi movies is like first you had the X-Men movies, and Batman Begins, things like that. They were the ones to pull it back, make it a bit more real world, all black costumes, whatever. Just reintroduce the mainstream audience to superheroes, not go too far. The Raimi movies go the other way, and I think they're what is both their greatest success and failure in a sense is that they are the first movies, and probably still the movies above all others, that really revel in the fact that they are based on a comic.
Yeah.
Like they go bright colors, crazy outrageous set pieces, hammy dialogue, and just no holds barred, no unapologetically comic booky, but it does wind up with the end result that they are very, very goofy films.
Yeah.
And then as I've said before, Iron Man and all the movies that came about as the result of Iron Man leading up to the Avengers are the ones that find the middle ground and are able to be unapologetically action-packed and comic booky without going too far and being goofy and still keeping things grounded the way that other movies did. And this is a Spider-Man movie that's much more in that vein. But it does still, funnily enough, err a little bit more on the sort of real-world side than, say, Iron Man or any of the Avengers film does.
Yeah, and that's what I said. And I was talking to Chris Triplett.
Green lizard man wandering around for the last 3 quarters of an hour.
I was talking to Chris Triplett about this before the show, where I said that I felt like this was a little bit heavier, not in terms of like story depth, because obviously the story is very surface, but I think in terms of like the tone, like it really tries to be a lot heavier. But it does a good job, like you said, of being. I mean, Andrew Garfield does a great job of being a very funny, Spider-Man. I mean, just has the moments like
the scene in the car.
The car thief scene is perfect.
Tries to get out, and he webs it and closes the door. Webs it, closes the door. Oh, you're going out the window. Okay.
Okay, that'll be good. That'll work. Yeah.
You know what my favorite bit in that scene actually was when the cop comes up and goes to shoot him. And this will dovetail into nicely another point I want to make is like he fires the gun and Spidey whips so hard. I thought he'd been hit, but it's really just him dodging the bullets so fast. And I'm like, yes. I love that. I jolted in my seat. Did you just get shot? No way. And that is something that part of it is CG, part of it is Garfield. But something this movie does that the Raimi movies never accomplished was Spider-Man moves like Spider-Man.
Yes. Fast.
It's
and that's like
not
even
even
in all
just fast. Not even just fast. It's like when he's stupid, shitty, crappy CGI effects of Spider-Man 1 notwithstanding, dumpy Peter Parker notwithstanding. There was a Spider-Man story. Peter David wrote it. It was called "The Commuter Cometh," and it was a story about a guy who commuted in from the suburbs to commit his crimes in New York every day. And Spidey followed him out to the suburbs on a taxi, and there's no tall buildings to swing off, no nothing. And the whole idea was like, who's the guy in the Spider-Man suit. When Spider-Man is perched on a building or whatever, or swinging, he's Spider-Man. But if he's just standing in a street walking along, he's a guy in a Spider-Man suit. It looks weird.
Yeah.
And that's all Maguire's Spidey ever did.
Yeah.
He didn't look real when he was swinging. But even the CG bits, like in this one, when like that great shot when he jumps down off the bridge to go after the lizard, and the arms come up and the knees come up.
Yes.
Spider, or and specifically like specifically the last shot of the film.
Yes.
With the out in the knee up and like that.
Oh
Spider-Man.
man.
But then
it kind of goes with like what Roger Ebert said about the first movie. He didn't give it a thumbs up because he felt like the effects hadn't got to the point where it could do him justice. It looked like a cartoon. But I feel like now maybe the effects have gotten, because he gave this a favorable review, and I think maybe it's because of what you're saying. The effects have gotten to a point, they've gotten to the look of it.
But I mean, but it's even, like you said, though.
It's not just the fact, though. Like, I think the best example of it is when he comes back off, after saving the kid from the car, right? And he comes back up the web and he hands the kid back, and I'm Spider-Man. Like, he doesn't, and it's such a little thing, but he doesn't hop down off the edge of the bridge.
He sits there,
he's perched up there like Spider-Man.
Pulls his head
hunting.
up.
Yeah.
Oh, when he did that, I was like, "You're Spider-Man!"
Spider-Man. Okay, now this is really stupid and really, really tiny, and you're going to groan at me when I say this, okay? But one of the really tiny little things about the Raimi movies that I always felt bugged by was whenever Spidey was on ground level and needed to web off somewhere, he would just stick his hand up and he would just sort of go, and he would just sort of fly away.
Yeah.
He would do those really fake-looking wire jumps, and then he would bend his legs in a really unnatural way. So he might as well have just an animation cell might have just slid off the screen. It might as well have been that. But every time Spidey's on ground level and needs to get up somewhere in this, he jumps up onto a car, he jumps up onto a wall, he swings off something, he gets height before he starts. They got the physics of it right. And I know I'm not a science nerd, and I'm not somebody who's normally bothered by the physics of films, but for whatever reason, that always sat really ill with me with the Raimi movies, even though they were already adopting a really goofy, cartoony sort of approach to it. But it's not a cartoon, it's a fucking film, and they got that right in this one again. Like, that he moved like Spider-Man. So many respects was a really important thing.
So there's 2 points. We'll move towards the end of this because there's, like I said, the lizard story. I don't know is much worth. I mean, he becomes a lizard and he wants to turn everybody into a lizard.
He does lizardy stuff.
Yeah, but there's 2
and the
points.
fight in the school is great with Stan's cameo.
But I thought that there's something in here that sort of mirrors, right? So Peter has the moment where he doesn't stop the guy at the shop, and that causes his uncle to die. So then you have the whole sequence on the bridge where the lizard is attacking the bridge, and Peter has like hung all these cars to like stop them from falling.
That was cool.
And there's a kid in one of the cars, and the guy's like, "Oh my God, my kid is in the car!" And so Peter, goes down to the car and does this whole thing. Great thing with the kid because the kid's like scared, and he's like,
the kid was gonna be an Uncle Ben.
"Oh man,
I wasn't sure that kid was gonna survive." Yeah.
But Peter does this great thing. He takes his mask off. But he does a great thing where he takes his mask off. He's like, "No, I'm just a person, And the kid is like scared and won't crawl up, and so he hands him the mask. He's like, "You put the mask on. That's gonna make you stronger." And so the kid like crawls up, but he ends up saving the kid, and gives the kid back to the dad. And that's the scene where we talked about where he's like very Spider-Man on the thing, and the guy even asks him like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Spider-Man." So then you get to the end of the film, and Peter at this point is like desperately trying to make it to the Oscorp building. I think it's past the point.
He got shot in the leg.
He got shot in the leg. He got tased and shot in the leg, so he's really trying to make it. But between where he's at and Oscorp, there's really no tall structures. There's nothing for him to get any kind of height.
It's not that. He's also can't. The thing is, it's not that there's no. It's like he can't. This is tied in with the fact that they do in the physics. He can't just free swing from building to building. He has to land each time and swing off the flats, the planes of the building. Yeah. And he can't because his legs banjacked, so he needs sticky, outy things to give him a clear path.
Right. And so what it turns out is the guy that had the kid works construction in New York, and when the guy sees that Peter's having a hard time getting to the Oscorp building, he calls in all of his buddies, and they all turn the cranes, and I'm like sitting there like, that's so awesome.
I don't know. To be honest, like now that was the thing about this one.
But the reason
that was one guy from New York, you pick on all of us. See?
It
Yeah.
was, but
And that happens in all the friggin' Spidey movies as well. And there was even an American flag draped over the
Okay, I didn't see it that way though. Think about it this way. Think about it as the opposite of what happened to Uncle Ben. It's the pay it forward, right? He protected the kid's kid. He did the right thing with no other reason to, and then this guy paid it back. You know, paid that debt back in a way. It was the return. It was a good deed returning a good deed rather than an ill deed returning an ill deed. I think it lended some symmetry to. That's why I liked it. I think you can see it that way too. I think you can sort of see it as the sort of kitschy, you know, New York moment, but I didn't see it that way. I think it would be
less. I would probably see it like that a bit less if Raimi hadn't slammed that so hard.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I'm saying, like, I really was trying. I mean, yes, we have to compare this to the Raimi films, but I was really trying to let it being its own thing. But anyway, Spider-Man saves the day.
Before we leave it, though, the ending part. Who's the dude? Who's that guy?
That was probably where you're going next.
Yeah, so that's I think I mean for the Lizard story, the Lizard's still alive. Dr. Connor's still alive. Hey, crazy, leave a villain alive?
Yeah,
crazy. I know, Raimi. What the hell?
Wow. I mean, yeah.
But you want to know what sucks about that end part? Is it's actually in the trailers. They showed the Easter egg in the trailer. I was like, what?
Oh, I missed that. So, I quit like watching some of the Spider-Man trailers too a couple months ago. I didn't want to see him. So
the Easter egg was actually in the trailer. So when you stayed after the credits, you're like, hey, I've already seen this.
So you get a denouement. If you haven't seen it, which I had not, they lead Connors into a cell and he sits down, and there's like a flash of lightning and a sort of shadowy figure appears. There's a conversation about whether he told Peter what happened to his parents. Connors tells the guy that he didn't tell him, and then the guy, I don't know, says something and leaves. But
we'll leave him alone for now.
Who is that supposed to be?
I know, like, there's no overt hints at all. It's not
I
like
was thinking it was Osborn.
Well, and some people have said that.
Thinking it was going to be Osborn. I kept thinking that he was going to take the head off, and there was going to be this actor, this big-name actor.
Yeah, because they hid Osborn's face and everything. You were expecting it to be Osborn. It would be like, oh my god,
it's like, I was going to be like, it's Bradley.
I don't know, but
it's like Bradley Cooper or something, and he's Osborn.
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum. Or so, you know what I mean? I was expecting it, but then they don't show, and then they don't say. So, who is it?
There's some rumors that this is building towards, like, okay, there's some rumors that are saying that maybe they're building towards a sort of Sinister Six, and saying that, you know, Dr. Connors and Peter's dad and maybe several other scientists were sort of part of this group, and that's sort of, you know, where the Sinister Six, you know, it's like the Sinister Six is going to make up a group of scientists. I mean, and there was even a scene, and I don't know if you caught it earlier, when Peter's going through the lab, and there's the machine with the arms that's moving the thread, and I was like, that kind of looks like Doc Ock's arms. I don't know. I may be reading into it, but so I don't know. I mean,
the first thought that I had I think the director said that this is not Osborn, but it is a representative of Osborn in that regard.
Right.
I think the director has at least said that. Now, my first thought when I saw it was that it was Mysterio.
Yes, that was my thought too.
Purely because I couldn't think of another Spider-Man villain who could pull off a disappearance.
I wasn't thinking villain though. I thought about it. I thought, okay, if it's not Osborn, I think they would have name dropped if it was Osborn because they would want that payout. Yeah. If it's not Osborn and they don't want us to know who it is, what if it's his dad?
Andy from the chat is saying the man with no face.
What if it's his dad? What if they intend to continue down this rabbit hole of, well, what were their parents involved in? What if?
I think that is obviously where they were. I don't think they'll make it that he didn't die.
No, I think
the Ultimate Comics didn't bottle out that.
Now
way.
that doesn't mean that they won't
with a clone, but I don't.
That doesn't mean Chameleon won't show up.
Yeah.
You know.
But I thought about it some more, and it occurred to me that there is the implication, like, that the plane crash might have been fixed or staged in some way. And I thought that, again, if there was a Spidey villain who could stage, like, a spectacle on that scale, Mysterio would fit that pretty well, too.
Yeah,
Damn,
I thought
love to see Mysterio in these movies.
I thought Mysterio as well. I mean, Mysterio is actually the only thing I could really think of because it's just like I think Oz is too obvious.
I think if it was a villain, though, I think that they would name drop. I think they would want to name drop a villain. Maybe not showing, but
I don't know.
Michael
But then the
Wolff,
question
like,
becomes like, would the cinema going public? Well, no, I suppose they did Thanos. It's not
Well,
like the cinema
but
going
that's-
public has to know who the
Yeah.
villain is if they name
They
drop him.
wouldn't
I mean,
have
the
to.
other suggestion I saw was Electro, because he could have disappeared with the lightning and come with the
Yeah, I
lightning.
thought about that too. That's the only two thought I had. Was like Electro and Mysterio. Like that's going to be my two votes, from there. And also because Electro, I don't know. It'll be interesting, but it's definitely very, very vague. They have not led this in any particular direction, which I think
Well,
is
the
to
actor
their
playing him is Michael Massey,
okay.
who was the guy who does a lot of scratchy voiced villain roles, perhaps most infamously known as being the guy who discharged the gun that killed Brandon Lee. But
Oh, oops.
but that's who that is.
Wow.
Not that that means
Huh.
anything in the context of Spider-Man. But just thought you
Mysterio
liked
would
it.
be cool. Let's go
Yeah.
Mysterio. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Playing to Spider-Man.
Or I would also take Michael Morbius because he knows Dr. Connor, so I would take Michael Morbius.
The science has definitely set us up with a lot of potential. I mean, I didn't even... It took them actually saying it in the film before I realized what a good choice the Lizard made for a Spidey origin movie villain, because it's all about genetic traits of one species being transferred to the other, tying them in together like that. Now, it's like as I say, I watched the Raimi movies, and something I had really forgotten about the first Raimi movie is that the first fucking scene is the origin.
Yeah.
It is all the most sledgehammer introduction to these characters. Peter gets bit, Norman gets gassed in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was
15.
like it was like just go.
And, like, there are many reasons that Spider-Man 2 is the best of the Raimi films, but one among them is the fact that we actually get time to meet Dr. Octavius and learn what he is before he actually gets an origin.
Okay,
and this movie
we
goes in
need
the
to
right-
have the discussion also, and I'll let you finish the thought, but before we leave, we have to have that discussion. How does it rank? I mean, is it
Best.
better? Is it
No,
the
no,
best?
I still
It
think
is,
Spider-Man 2. I would go Spider-Man 2, amazing.
Spider-Man 2 is still
1.
higher for me. That's what I was going to say.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
Spider-Man
I
2,
don't know, man.
amazing. Spider-Man
Amazing
1,
number 2.
Spider-Man 3.
But the more we talk about Amazing, the more I like it better. So I don't know. I need to see it again. I've only seen it once, so I don't know yet.
My personal vote, that would be it. 2, amazing. 1, 3. That would be it.
Having just rewatched Amazing and seeing this movie succeed in all the areas where I felt the Raimi movies fell down, I really have to put Amazing Spider-Man at the top of the list.
Wow.
And I can only see it growing from here as well, because they've got the growing. And like I say, like the Lizard is such a good choice for a first villain. The science is really
But
there
Sam
to
Raimi
expand.
took Doc Ock and he put him into a movie, and it wasn't totally ridiculous.
Hey,
That
Doc Ock,
means
though.
something.
Yeah.
That means something.
Well,
It
Okay.
wasn't it totally ridiculous with his tentacles talking to him and his
Yeah, it
tentacles
was a little-
flying as he
yeah.
bellowed to the sky?
there were some moments.
It was less ridiculous within the context of everything else Raimi did in his 3 films.
Right.
The subway scene, the he's just a kid. All these people see his face, but it doesn't matter because he's just a kid.
Yeah,
It's
but
awesome.
everybody sees his face the same way everybody helped him against Doc Ock, the same way everybody helped him against the Green Goblin, the same way everybody cheered whenever Spider-Man came to fight the Sandman. It's like really it's like it's all the first movie. You're gonna let it go in the first movie because it's
Or Spider-Man 3,
post-
the conversation. We're not even thinking about that.
Okay, fair enough.
Spider-Man
Yeah,
3
okay,
does
I'll
not
do that.
exist. So,
But
cool.
like, it's weird post 9/11 solidarity.
Yeah,
in
and
the first-
I don't wonder if that didn't hang over the Raimi films. I mean, the fact that they came in
Well, I think
right.
the first, I don't know why they kept doing it in the second one and the third one. but
I
the
think
first-
because they had set the precedent. I think they had set the precedent that was the universe, and then it just kind of became something. I mean, we were in a post 9. I mean, here in America, like I said, I don't know. Here in the States, especially, it's just like we're in that post 9/11 world really until about 4 years ago, and it's like, until then, did we not really kind of wake up and say, oh yeah, we can be kind of cynical and we can, sort of, do these things. But so I don't know. I mean, I think it was just a product of the time. Had that have
totally-
not happened, I think that
In more
it
ways
may have been a different film. A little
I
bit,
mean,
not a lot.
The Raimi movies are very much products of their time in many more ways than that, in their whole approach to it.
Well, you could
and what
pretty much say that
technology-
about any superhero show, though.
Well, not in this particular sense, and I mean, I see what you're saying, and I agree, but I think in this particular sense, having that whole pro-America 9/11 solidarity, I think really hung over the first film and bled over into the second.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was as bad in the second, though. Like, it was force-fed to you on the first movie.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't feel that scene was as much that as what you're saying. I think that was just a lot of, hey, there's just this kid that's doing all this. I mean, he's so young.
Scenes like that are a really good example of the hokey, hammy nature of the Raimi movie scripts as well, where you got to get through me. And me, and me, and me, and us, and me. And it literally goes,
I am Spartacus!
And then, like, you look at the third one, and you get all those bystanders reading the cover of the newspaper where Brock's put the faked photo of it, and it's like, they're all saying the most ridiculous things. I got a 9-year-old kid loves Spider-Man. What am I supposed to do now?
Again, we divorced Spider-Man 3 from the conversation.
Spider-Man 3
no,
did not happen.
Okay,
in that respect, that is exactly the same as the other Raimi movies where everybody talks really.
That's what you got.
Spider-Man! Go, Spidey, go! Poor soul up on the 3rd floor didn't make it. Talk like a person.
All right. Well, we have talked about this film.
I'd have to say, best Spider-Man film.
It's a good movie. It's a very good movie.
I'm glad. One thing, I'm really glad that all you guys liked it. Guy I saw it with, fucking hated it.
Jeff.
Yeah.
What did he not like? I mean, I saw that he didn't like it, but I didn't see what.
Immensely, indistinct commentary. Like, they claimed it wasn't funny and that Spider-Man wasn't funny, and I'm like, film were you watching? Like, Spidey was running his mouth constantly. It was the perfect Spider-Man. Anytime, and gripe about the mask. Compared with the Raimi movies, anytime the mask came off in this one for a reason.
Yes.
Spidey was just running around pulling the mask off every 5 minutes, and it was like, he goes to save Mary Jane, and he's not wearing the mask for some reason, and he runs off to put the mask on, and then pulls the mask off again. And it's like, oh, the mask's come off when he's fighting Dr. Octopus.
Oh, the mask forced. It didn't feel
like, whatever. You got the whole scene when he takes it to not scare the kid. I mean, it's like, I don't blame any actor or director who says, get this thing off me, because there's no emoting through it. It's not like it's not like Iron Man, where you've got the in the helmet HUD shots and you can get the actor's face up there. There's no doing it for Spider-Man. The mask is gonna have to come off. Fair enough, but they do it well in this one. It's like, it comes off then, and it comes off. It does come off in the final fight. I don't remember why, but it's like, I'm totally okay with that, because
when Captain Stacy takes the mask off, we get it there when he finds out. And,
yeah. But then Peter puts it right back on. He doesn't shoot off to fight crime without the mask.
Right. He puts the mask back on. Yeah.
And then it does come off again for the final bit, but I don't remember why. And I feel like it came off at some other point in the film.
I think the
lizard took it off. The lizard took it off him.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think the lizard took it off him in the fight. Yeah.
But it's like, it didn't stand out. It's like, you watch Spider-Man 3. I know we've divorced Spider-Man 3 from the conversation, but you look at Spider-Man 3, and it's like, every time the camera lingers on Venom's face for more than 2 seconds. Hello, I'm Topher Grace. How are you doing? Put that thing back on.
Yes.
It's not, it's like, I know the actor is going to not want that. You're going to want to see that. The actor's going to want the face scene. But the thing is, Venom's got a face. There's no excuse for not having.
Yeah, that has a moving, very alive.
Venom has a face,
and the scary face if you do it right, but they didn't.
Yeah, and that is bad. But anyway, that's Spider-Man 3. This is Amazing Spider-Man. It is well good. They do the romance good. Andrew Garfield is a better Spider-Man and Peter Parker than Tobey Maguire ever was.
It's a crazy thing. It's a female character that's like not objectified, not a damsel in distress, not ditzy.
Hey, it's missing Jameson, but hey, it can't be perfect. So it's still awesome. It's still amazing.
It's not missing. We're just not there yet.
I know, but like in my mind, I'm like, okay, it doesn't have Jameson in it.
He's just
not
there.
Perfect.
I mean,
it's not perfect because he's not there.
About Spider-Man, like, if you look at Amazing Fantasy number 15.
Oh, I will. Okay.
Just how much of Spider-Man's story is there, set in stone from the outset, that still holds true now. You look at any other superhero and their origin story, and they're not even necessarily their origin story, but their first issue, and how much they'll have changed since then, how many little nips and tucks and tweaks and changes have been made to Batman, to Superman, to Iron Man, Captain America, all these little tweaks that have had, things that have become iconic and perpetually associated with the characters have been introduced gradually over time by a plethora of writers. It's like, the shattering pearl necklace from Batman's origin didn't exist until the 80s,
Right.
But, like, everything Spider-Man is there. in
Yeah.
Amazing Fantasy 15. Like, that is why Spider-Man is, whatever else you may feel about Spider-Man as a character, like, he does have one of the singular greatest origins of comic books. And, basically anything that's not in Amazing Fantasy 15 is then added in Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Yeah.
Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's perhaps why it's a little strange then to see something take so many liberties with the origin, not for the purposes of creating necessarily a better story on screen. Like, if there's one thing that I'm going to bring it down over, it's the fact that some of its changes, including the design of the costume and bits of the origin, not the convenience store up, not the convenience of Ben being where he is to get shot. That's about making it a more fluid story, but it does seem to me like the changes are done purely for the sake of differentiating it from the Raimi movie rather than to make it a better film in and of itself. And while I understand that, it does make me say that like the best Spider-Man movie has yet to be made and lives in some nebulous, undefined realms between Spider-Man 1 and the Amazing
I
Spider-Man.
hope it's Amazing Spider-Man 2. I hope
Yeah.
that's
There is
I should say the best Spider-Man origin film would
Yeah.
lie somewhere
Yeah.
between the two of those. But
There-
I think if we can only go from here,
There's one strange gripe, and then we have to go because we run way long.
I got to go in.
Why the fuck does Peter use a 35mm camera?
And
And why did he put his name on the back with a freaking mechanical label maker?
It's all about the grain. You don't capture the natural subtleties of light.
Where do you even get 35mm film developed?
I still
a
got it
dark
developed. I used it last year.
Okay.
What? Well, you live in like Utah, though. I mean,
They don't have running water
that's
out there
like-
yet.
Nope, we still
Okay,
need to have
that's like
outdoor
10 years.
toilets.
That's like 10 years behind
are,
the times.
The Parkers are kind of poor. He can't get a digital camera. It's a hand-me-down.
He has
got it
he
from-
has a mechanical door lock rigged to his huge freaking computer. Why does this man?
Hand-me-down mechanical door lock. What do you want?
Why does this man have a 35mm camera? He has a He has a smartphone. He has a digital door lock. He has a huge computer.
Do legitimately prefer analog film.
No, they don't. I sold cameras to photographers.
Film and
They-
television have taught me.
No.
You want to know why? I will tell you why. Because if
You
you've
can get
ever
higher.
Wait.
Okay.
If you have ever developed film, you'll realize you get a major high over the stop back.
Oh, okay, that's what. And I have, and that's true.
It looks
But
like the sort of guy who would help paint.
yeah, but Peter doesn't strike me as the guy that like develops a lot of his own film, And considering how computer savvy he is, it just makes no other than the nostalgia part, which is totally what it's about, and that's the gripe that I have. Like, other than trying to establish the nostalgia of Peter having this big 35mm camera, there is no reason for Peter to have that camera whatsoever. And that is like, that's a weird thing, but for Peter
Man,
being a
I was
techie
weird for
guy.
getting hung up on the physics of him jumping.
No,
from
I don't think so at all. But for Peter being a techie guy, having a 35mm camera, I mean, he might as well be riding a fucking dinosaur. It's just like, it makes no sense.
Fucking wah.
Anyway.
Oh,
Shut up! You're talking about Spider-Man and flying off and
Maybe
webbing
he didn't
and
want to
shit.
ruin his nice digital camera because he was going to the sewers. Hello, that's nastiness.
His camera does keep working, that's right.
Anyway, all right. This has been a terribly long show, but we talked about really awesome stuff. So we hope you'll, the people that got to leave early,
Bound to happen.
the people that left early, whatever. But anyway, this has been a great discussion. So I'm really glad that we all watched it, and I'm really glad that we all enjoyed it too. So,
Yeah, because there's some polarizing opinions. Like, by and large, it's ranking favorably with critics, but it does. The fact that it's a reboot, it does have a lot of people against it just for that fact alone, and the good qualities of the film, because it changes a lot, seem to not be even they seem to not be superseding people's dislike of the fact that it is a reboot anyway. But then there are some people who just fucking hated it.
Welcome to comics.
I was in the company of one of these people who just
apparently.
hated
And people
But then he
are
didn't like
often-
Raimi movies either.
And Andy apparently is going to rip into him, so we see that on
Yeah.
Twitter now. So,
Well, I should say that he didn't
Yeah.
like Raimi films either.
oh, okay. Well, that's so. All right, I have to get out of here. Apparently, I'm going to be okay. So I'm doing a podcast right after this. I'm going to be with the Moonbase 2 guys. They have that new Avengers podcast. I'm going to be on that. So if you want to hear more of me, and I don't know why you would, I'm going to be on that. because apparently for some reason they think I know things or they think I have opinions. I don't. I just defer to the rest of my crew here. So if you want that, and again, check that out. And again, don't forget to join us next week, the 14th, for our big San Diego Comic-Con. Oh my God, all day broadcast. Movie announcements, Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel Now.
I don't care about that. I want that cliff jumper, and I probably won't get it.
Yeah, nobody will get that. I did.
I don't care. I've already got my derpy.
Okay, she's got her derpy.
My derpy is on its way.
Oh, that's
so,
good.
Yeah.
That is not relevant to this program.
Right. I pre-ordered. I did pre-order the G2 Bruticus from Amazon, so I've got that. Whenever that
what
gets
I ordered
released.
from Amazon the other day when a Bleeding Cool posted up a link to it, the complete Justice League cartoon DVD box set, formerly 100 of your Earth dollars, marked down apparently for all of last week as part of a week-long sale that I only found out about like a few hours before it ended, to less than half price, $45.
Yeah, I think Batman Beyond too. I saw that this morning.
Yes, Batman Beyond is this week's deal now.
Yeah,
you can get the
like
complete
$45.
Batman Beyond for $45. I'm less bothered about that, but I am super stoked that I got all of Justice League for less than £35. Shipped less than 35.
I paid a lot more for that.
I missed
bought
out.
them
I
individually.
should have done that. All right, we have got to get
Well, I
out
only
of here.
found out about it last night. Yeah.
All right, so we've got to get out of here. Thank you so much, Chris Triplett, Chris Feely, Nicole Hale. Thanks so much. Great show today. We thank you all for tuning in, and please tune in next time when it'll be Fanboy Versus.
This has been Fanboy Versus. Visit us at tfradio.net for show notes and to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at tfradio for news and updates. Like the podcast? Leave us feedback on iTunes. Copyright 2011 Radio Free Cybertron.